Good evening and welcome to tonight's recognition program. I'm Dennis Peterson, Superintendent of Minnetonka Schools. We begin each regular school board meeting recognizing the outstanding accomplishments of students, staff, and community members for their positive impact on our district. Tonight we are recognizing amazing achievements in academics and employee giving. First, let's celebrate our AP scholars from classes of 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. To earn this designation, students earned a score of 3 or higher out of 5 on 3 or more exams. We recently calculated that 84.5% of the class of 2021 took at least one AP or International Baccalaureate course as part of their 4-year plan. Our high school offers more than 80 AP courses for which students can earn college credit and weighted grades for academic honors. Last school year, 1,606 Minnetonka students took 2,942 AP exams. The number of exams and courses taken in is only one example of how Minnetonka students challenge themselves and prepare for their pursuits after graduation. On 78.6% of tests taken last year, students scored 3 or higher, which is considered the threshold to earn college credit. Because of their hard work and achievement on AP exams, these students are well positioned to enter college with credits earned during high school. All AP scholars will receive a medal to acknowledge their accomplishment, which may be worn at graduation. We will now hear from some of our AP scholars who wanted to share how an AP course or class project impacted their educational journey and shaped their future plans.
My name is Alexandra Zadanya, and I am a junior. Taking AP courses is no simple or easy task. It requires a lot of academic rigor, strength, and resilience. However, it can offer a multitude of benefits for students. For me personally, taking AP language and composition has helped me realize the skills that I have when it comes to writing persuasive essays and motivating and moving my audience. It has also helped me realize my interests and passions for pursuing law as a major in my future. I hope that students at Minnetonka can find and interpret AP courses as a way to challenge themselves, to find their skills and talents, as well as find their passions and interests for their futures.
Hi, my name is Jack Poston. I'm a senior at Minnetonka High School, and an AP class that's greatly influenced me is AP Microeconomics. Basically, we were taught about economics and how it's influenced in the world, and now my entire way I think is in economics with like supply and demand, price elasticity, etc. So that is a class that's greatly influenced me.
My name is Claire Rolstead, and I am a class of 2024 sophomore. I took AP Human Geography freshman year, which significantly impacted my education. AP Human Geography made me realize my love of learning about the world, and especially how human activity is affected by land on Earth. After this class, I definitely want to develop a deeper understanding on geography, history, and other global topics.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Wyatt, a senior at Minnetonka High School, and one of my best memories from AP seminar was my ability to go deep into the topic of nuclear power, a topic that I'm very passionate about, and being able to defend it and look at all the different pros and cons from all the different lenses, something I wouldn't have been able to do in a regular English class.
Hello, my name is Prathul Rao, and I am a junior at Minnetonka High School. During my high school career, I've had the privilege to have such an amazing education and have access to a wide array of opportunities at Minnetonka Public Schools. While in high school, a class that has had an impact on me has been AP Language and Composition. This class I took during my sophomore year of high school, and it allowed me to explore different ways to analyze text and helped enhance my writing skills throughout the year. In this class, we tackled different, relevant, and recent events that were happening in the world around us, and this made the class very engaging and interesting and made me passionate about the things I was writing about. This class is an example of many classes that are available in Minnetonka that allow for students to push themselves and explore topics they are interested in or passionate about.
Hi, my name is Kayla Stevenson, and I'm a class of 2022 senior. During my time at the high school, I've taken a variety of AP and IB classes, and band all 4 years. I've really appreciated the amount of advanced classes offered here at the high school, since I've been able to personalize my schedule with what interests me the most. My two favorite classes at the high school have been AP Literature and Composition and AP World History. Both these classes were challenging, but also very fun and filled with engaging material. With such a wide variety of advanced classes, the real challenge has been fitting them all in.
We will now recognize our AP scholars. For the class of 2021, we recognize the following students: Harriet Bennett, Amelia Brandel Nelson, Amelie Brecken, Parker Brown, Elizabeth Cahill, Elia Seyfried, Kashi Costello, Julia DeLugash, Zoe Dumalag, Olivia Destrud, Jason Elia Wheeler, Phoebe Evans, Sienna Gray, Colin Hauser, Samantha Henry, Emily Jurgens, John Kallmeyer, Hayden Kelly, Ellery Kitt, Jonathan LaCourse, Cindy Lawson, Catherine Liu, Aidan Leiker, Greta Lindberg, Anna Maples, Ethan Mortensen, Drew Murphy Vosberg, John Nickpon, Henry Olig, Laurel Pankoff, Sidney Putnam, Sophia Rain, Christopher Roberts, Alec Rodriguez, Addie Rosnow, Lyndon Rude, Bryn Sensky, Emily Stobie, Arisana Stoka, Tio Bessa Tadessa, Karina Torberson, Knut Orjan, Marissa Wom, Kyle Wosi, Isabella Woodbury, Thomas Wright, and Greta Zekovich. For the class of 2022, we recognize the following students: Lucia Adoradio, Nicholas Anderson, Lucy Battelle, Lucas Charbonnet, Benjamin Christensen, Claire Cowan, Carolyn Davis, Jesse DePass, Clayton Dunn, Audrey Edwards, Graham Foss, Ella Fremgord, Molly Fries, Quinn Gergen, Goji Gu Jiani, Simon Handwerger, Drew Hansen, Nicole Hardaway, Helen Holmstrom, Samuel Husso, Trevor Camps, Corrine Kelly, Claire Labatt, Tyler Lean, Carmen Lanier, Greta Lips, Sid Louie, Molly Lund, Ewan McGowan, Caravia Mandel, Emmanuel Martin, Danielle Mazzo, Joseph McDonald, Catherine Mindak, Kimberly Wynn, Camden O'Brien, Henrik Olson, Jack Palm, Brooke Paradise, Jack Poston, Liam Quinn, Emma Raby, Gracie Rindles, Hannah Rindles, Matthew Slosher, Franklin Simonson, Sawyer Smith, Kayla Stevenson, Emma Swenson, Julia Terrell, Carter Thomes, Trig Van Wyck, Hallie Van Ruden, Matthew Wadman, Marlene Walters, Parker Wickerin, and Nicholas Wyatt. For the class of 2023, we recognize the following students: Reagan Alleman, Jack Allenberg, Luke Anderson, Adam Bravo, Michael Cherian, Grace Conley, Christina Desmet, Elena Dodd, Brooke Dodds, Jared Dumpcombe, Tegan Dvorak, Zachary Eisenman, Mia Elkrog, Griffin Fanning, Madeline Fiedler, Hannah Fedor, Owen Frick, Michaelan Fry, Annika Gilbertson, Nicholas Gillies, Alexander Gonigman, Juan Pablo Gonzalez Villaseca, Kieran Holland, Sophia Herman, Anastasia Isbell, Megan Iskey, Alexander Janes, Bjorn Johnson, Lydia Cassay, Maya Carrick, Reagan Kitt, Jenna Klein, Nicholas Kucherenko, Nicholas LaCourse, Sam Luwagi, Darren Ma, Jordy Malloret, Jameson Michaels, Maya Moore, Kayla Northway, Ethan Odie, Madeline Pradzinski, Ty Pudwill, Macy Ramsden, Prathful Rao, Alexandra Reichstadt, Charlotte Ritan, Theodore Ray, Adam Rickman, Grace Sadora, Benjamin Shuby, Winona Stone, Mia Tessani, Katriana Trin, Griffin Unger, Peter Velgersdijk, Lindsay Welch, Macy Wenning, Alexandra Zadania, and Maria Zeises. From the class of 2024, we recognize the following students: Dasha Berezanski, Leah Brandt, Aaron Duong, Courtney Heer, Elizabeth Kearns, Sophia Liu, Devin Moss, Maya Moberg, Rachel Patefield, Andrew Petovis, Zachary Steingass, Hemath Vangala, Nolan Wayman, and Clara Rolstad. Congratulations again to each of you for this achievement. Earning a top score of 1600 on the SAT is a rare achievement that only 300 or so test takers achieve each year. So far, 2 Minnetonka High School students have earned the top score this year. They are the first students at the high school to receive a top score since the SAT changed its scoring system in 2016. Congratulations to the following students: Luke Patefield, class of 2022, and John Hulkren, class of 2023. For the past 21 years, the school district has held an annual employee charitable giving campaign throughout the month of October, altogether raising more than $1 million throughout the years to support nonprofit federations that assist those in great need. This year, our staff together raised our highest yearly total ever, with pledges reaching more than $94,500. All of the donations will support one of the nonprofit federations: Creating Healthier Communities, Open Your Heart to the Hungry and Homeless, and Greater Twin Cities United Way. Or they will fund programs at designated charities that were selected by our employees. I believe our campaign was more important than ever this year. Many of our own students and their families will be positively impacted by these gifts. At each of our buildings in the district, we have campaign site coordinators who arrange activities and outreach efforts for staff in their buildings to promote engagement for the giving campaign. I'm grateful to each of them. I know that it was not an easy year to ask people to contribute, but the donations our staff raised are desperately needed by many people who are struggling this year. Tonight, we'll honor each site coordinator for their amazing contributions in bringing our staff together to accomplish this wonderful fundraising effort. The following staff members led the annual employee giving campaign in their buildings: David Wickland from Clear Springs Elementary, Becky Johnson and Jessica Thole from Deep Haven Elementary, Lauren Nelson from Excelsior Elementary, Andrea Hoffman from Groveland Elementary, Carly Brown, Lisa Agar, and Kelly McCashin from Minnewash Elementary, Joe Walker and Jason Reeder from Scenic Heights Elementary, Jacob Westman from Minnetonka Middle School East, Sarah Hunt and Margaret McDonald from Minnetonka Middle School West, Darren Best, Jennifer Stout, and Jennifer Breidenbach from Minnetonka High School, Amber Trapp and Lindsay Richens from Minnetonka Community Education, Mike Dronin from the Tech Center, and district-wide campaign coordinator for the Giving Campaign overall, Dr. Jackie Getty. Thank you again to each of you. And I would also like to thank each staff member who contributed to the Giving Campaign and who gave so generously. You have truly made an impact on our community. That concludes our recognition program this evening. Thank you for joining us. The school board meeting will begin shortly. Good evening. It's my honor tonight to swear in two of the newly elected board members, and we'll swear in Ms. Sellinger at a later date. So we're going to start with Mr. Patrick Lee O'Halloran. So Patrick, if you raise your right hand and repeat after me, I'll let you speak into the mic. I swear that I will support the Constitution
I swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States and the state
of the United States and the state
of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of school board member of Independent School District number 276
Independent School District number 276
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I swear that I will support the Constitution
I swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge
the
duties of the office of school board member of Independent School District number 276
of school member of Independent School District 276
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, well, I'd like to call the January 6th, 2022 school board meeting to order. Let's all rise and say the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, welcome everybody, and welcome board members, and especially to Patrick and Megan, our newly elected board members. Congratulations and welcome. Thank you. We're glad that you are here. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ooh, I heard Patrick. We'll give it to him. Changes or additions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our first item is the election of school board officers for 2022. Dr. Pearson, do you?
No, I'd let you go ahead.
All right, great. Each year at the organizational meeting of the school board, board members are asked to elect from its membership by majority vote persons to fill the positions of chairperson, vice chairperson, treasurer, and clerk. First up we have is the chair. Do we have any nominations for chair? Mark?
I'd like to nominate Chris Vitale for chair. I've had the honor of working with Chris for the last 4 years, and especially this last year as vice chair to his chair. And I've found Chris to be overwhelmingly student and community motivated and directed, and offered a fair and even-handed approach to our proceedings. And I nominate Chris wholeheartedly.
Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa? Chris Vitale, do you accept the nomination of chairperson? Yes, I do.
Congratulations.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Next up is vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair? Lisa?
I would like to nominate Mark Ambrosen for vice chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
John?
Mark has been an exceptional vice chair. I have had the pleasure of working with him for some time on the board, as well as way back into the days of Minnetonka volunteering. And Mark is very student-centered and is an excellent listener and an exceptional communicator. And I think he makes a great complement to working with Chair Vitale as a team. So I wholeheartedly endorse Mark for the vice chair position.
Mark, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
I accept.
Great. Anyone else? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a chairperson. Do we have any nominations for treasurer? I do. I'd like to nominate Katie Becker, who is not here. I've known Katie for probably over 10 years, back from our days in Scenic Heights, and as our families are serial volunteers together, all over the place, including on the board together. She is a friend, but she's also, like Mark said, very community-minded. She listens. She wants to hear as much input as possible. And I was able to spend time with her as her vice chair and trained me in very well, and was a great chair for us. And so I would like to nominate Katie Becker for treasurer. Is there a second?
Second.
Mark, second. Katie Becker, do you accept the nomination? She does. We at our meeting beforehand, at our study session, she said that she would be treasurer. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Katie. Clerk, do we have any nominations for clerk?
I would like to nominate Lisa Wagner for clerk.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mark? Go ahead.
Yeah, in my short time on the board, I've gotten to know Lisa. She's a hard worker. She's committed to the community, student first, is really good with details. She's the one that doesn't mix anything, crosses the T, dots the I's. I think she'd make a great clerk.
Great. And do you accept the nomination, the position of clerk?
I do, thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a clerk. Also, we would like to appoint, or can I get a motion to appoint Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Paul Bourgeois, as Deputy Clerk, who can act on the clerk's behalf on normal and routine business matters, and as Deputy Treasurer to carry out duties as described in law and in his job description.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
John? Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a deputy clerk and a deputy treasurer. Our next item is our school report from Clear Springs. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, it's an honor and a pleasure to introduce Clerk Carpenter, the principal of Clear Springs, and he always does a great job of presenting a report to you, and I think he has some team members here tonight to help him. So, Mr. Carpenter, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Peterson and Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. And it was really an honor, I just want to say, to observe the swearing in of our newly elected and re-elected board members. I'd like to be the first principal to welcome you and thank you for this service role. Please know you're always welcome at Clear Springs. We'd love to have you. Also, since I have the podium, and hopefully he won't stop me, I want to express my gratitude to Dr. Peterson publicly. He has been a tremendous leader and mentor to me in my 18 years here at Clear Springs, and I will miss him dearly next year. So thank you, Dr. Peterson,
Thank you.
for all you've done for the children, staff, families, and the Minnetonka community.
Thank you.
Well, I brought a wonderful team from Clear Springs with me tonight. Our goal is to show you how we wrap students with support and great instruction. We do it every day. We thought this presentation may be helpful to any new board members, and we really want you to know about the great things we're doing for children, so we're excited to be here tonight. So let's move to our experts. Each team member will introduce themselves, and we will then share examples of how we serve students. First, I'm Kurt Carpenter, the principal at Clear Springs. I intentionally chose a picture from 2010. You look good, Kurt. I'm David Wickland, the assistant principal at Clear Springs.
I'm Heather Daldool, the English learner teacher at Clear Springs.
I'm Lacey Tetzlaff, and I'm the bilingual reading specialist at Clear Springs. I'm Rachel Chase, and I'm a grade 5 Spanish immersion classroom teacher at Clear Springs.
Hi, I'm Amy Horning, the social worker at Clear Springs.
Hello, I'm Kelly Phillips. I'm a special education teacher.
Hi, I'm Liz Langang, and I'm one of the math intervention teachers at Clear Springs.
Hi, I'm Tammy Brady. I'm an advanced learning paraprofessional as well as an English learner paraprofessional.
So we are all here, we're ready to go. Much of what we wanted to highlight tonight is really around the school board goal number 2, excellence in student learning and support. So at Clear Springs, really, the center of what we do is we really try to personalize our programs to meet the needs of all of our learners. And when we say all learners, I think that needs to be highlighted, and you're gonna see that tonight with everyone that we brought tonight, that we really partner to work with all of our learners. I love this analogy of silos versus the community garden, and really you'll see that. Seeing all of their work and our work, it may look like silos that we're kind of working in our own departments, but really it's a community garden effect to make decisions and to successfully implement instruction at every student's unique level and need for every student at Clear Springs. So that's just important to highlight. Really, a lot of our work that we're doing this year is wrapped around MTSS. That's kind of a newer term. I know that's going around the district, but with the work through the University of Minnesota, the multi-tiered systems of support, and you as a board have worked on that, and we are working a lot on that and really aligning and highlighting our practices. So some of the things that you'll see tonight kind of sprinkled in with all of our presentations is how we're doing different tiers of support and instruction, how we're integrating data collection in every decision that we make. You'll hear about universal screeners that we're using for our students, both academically and social emotionally, and really highlighting some of the evidence-based practices that we're doing. This is kind of on an ongoing daily, monthly, weekly level that's happening at Clear Springs as we talk about kids, as we form groups, as we instruct kids, and as we assess and realign. So we're going to start tonight with Amy Horning, who's our social worker, and she's going to highlight some of the work that she does.
So I just want to talk a little bit about my role as a social worker in social emotional learning at Clear Springs. So I, along with our school psychologist, do some direct in-group instruction for students who may have social emotional needs. And we see kids in groups of 2 to 5 to 6 kids, maybe depending on space. And the past few years it's been smaller, on the smaller end of that, and also individually. And last year we serviced over 80 students between she and I and an intern that I had last year for those needs. Another big piece of my role is to meet directly with parents to provide support if they have concerns about the mental health of their child, and to make referrals to outside agencies for support. Consult with teachers and staff for kids who have behavioral needs in the classroom, social emotional needs, so I do a lot of just meeting with teachers as well and serving on different committees that provide that support for kids. I am the liaison for our co-located mental health services in the building through Relate Counseling and the Growing Through Grief program through Park Nicollet. And I supervise para-led programs in our building, ADHD mentoring and Project Play. And last year, we had a para who served 75 students through those 2 programs. And then just kind of the basic nitty-gritty social work stuff is meeting their basic needs at school. So students who come in from homes that may be food insecure, who do not eat breakfast before they come to school, who don't have snacks to bring to school. These would be our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, but they maybe are coming with an empty belly, so we want to make sure that they're fed and can focus in the classroom. So our wonderful Clear Springs Dads group donated a refrigerator for my office, and they keep it stocked with cheese and yogurt and milk and snacks and things for kids to have. And alongside that, students sometimes don't have families who cannot provide winter gear, so all the stuff they need for recess, snow boots and pants and Also school supplies, headphones for their iPad. So I work with our parent volunteers to get items like that for students. I follow up on any child protection and truancy reporting that needs to be done with the county, and then also provide families who might need outside services through ICA Food Shelf, Resource West, agencies like that. I try to keep them connected in that way as well. Thanks.
It's okay.
Hi, everyone. I am one of the 3 special education teachers at Clear Springs. I also want to say we have 16 amazing paraprofessionals that support our kids in the classrooms this school year, and that's the most that we've ever had, and our students are doing great. Even with all the COVID and everything that's happened, all the changes that are being made, having that support for them has been awesome. I do want to take a second, I want you to focus on the pictures, because these children are the reason why I show up to work every day. They are so amazing and awesome. I mean, look at that little smile. So once the kids meet state criteria for special education services under any category of specific learning disability, other health disability, emotional behavioral disorder, and ASD, we create an individualized education plan. We work as a team. That would be me, the classroom teacher, the parents, social worker, speech and language, sometimes it's the reading specialist, administration, and we all work together to create goals and objectives that the child will work on throughout the school year, throughout the calendar year. We review those goals and objectives throughout the year. The IEP is a fluid document, so we can make changes at any time to increase and decrease services so the child's needs are always being met. Clear Springs is really good about meeting the whole child's need. If we have a child that qualifies under emotional behavioral disorder and falls behind academically, we meet as a team. Hey, this kid has fallen behind. We need to pull them in for more services. So we increase their services in academics and work on both of those areas to get them growing. One of the other things that we are able to do being in elementary is that we get the kids when they're young, and we can keep them for 5 or 6 years. So we help them transition, we create good working relationships with the parents, with the students, with the teachers, and Kurt and I have had many students that have gone from RSK to K, and we've helped those kids grow. We currently have 116 active IEPs right now at Clear Springs. So feel free to come over anytime and see these little faces, because it will definitely fill your bucket.
Hi, my name is Liz Lanking, and I'm one of the math intervention teachers at Clear Springs. There are 2 of us, and we have a total of 1.2 FTE, and we are funded through not only RTI or MTSS, but also Title I funds. We serve, this fall, we've served 57 students in small groups at either the Tier 3 or the Tier 2 support, and Tier 2 means that students are getting services about 25 minutes, 3 out of the 6 days cycle, and Tier 3 means we see them every day for 25 minutes. How students qualify to receive intervention services? Well, we use a plethora of data such as NWEAs scores, we use MCAs, something called the NBSP benchmark. We also use FastBridge in their screeners, as well as teacher recommendations. We partner with parents and classroom teachers to identify those areas of focus and areas where students need more support. When we meet with groups, we offer those individualized instructional plans, and we have hands-on activities and lessons, and one of the foundational parts that we use is the early numeracy concepts and relationships. So when we think about subitizing, verbal and object counting, think of cardinality, and then those relationships, how numbers interact and relate to one another. And this builds on throughout K-5. Our goal, obviously, is to develop students' flexibility and fluency with numbers, and then we want students to be able to have a love for learning math and see themselves as amazing mathematicians. So come on over anytime to see that.
Hi, my name is Lacey Tetzloff, and I get to do my job every day with Brenda Van Dixhorn, so you might want to look up there. There we are in our Halloween outfits. We're Reading Teacher 1 and Reading Teacher 2. I will try my best to explain all that we do together to support reading students that need reading help at Clear Clear Springs. Much of what we do is similar to what Liz shared in math intervention. We use a variety of assessments to identify those students that need reading support. And then we provide and plan explicit instruction to meet their needs in small group settings. So from 2 students to 5 students, and we use research-based instruction that we are trained in, whether that be Foundations or Wilson, Just Words, leveled literacy intervention, and we also deliver that instruction in Spanish and in English. So I'm the bilingual literacy, reading specialist. We also communicate with parents to get their support, to be present in their child's reading interventions. We provide teachers with resources so that they're able to give interventions to their students in the classroom. And we monitor the students' progress to make sure that they are growing and if we need to adjust their interventions at any time. And most importantly, we work to build relationships with our students so that they develop that love of learning and love of reading. And currently in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 reading support, we are servicing 114 students. Thank you.
I'm Rachel Chase again. I'm a grade 5 Spanish immersion teacher. And as any dedicated educator at Clear Springs, paras, teachers, any other staff in the building, foundational to my work is building meaningful relationships with my students that support them in their academics and as human beings. This includes investing significant time and energy in fostering community and social emotional learning to allow students to connect with me and with their peers in ways that will help them flourish as they grow as people. I provide opportunities for learning that meet the needs of the whole child, implementing and employing a variety of strategies and instructional practices that will help students learn no matter who they are or where they come from. I design and implement a variety of hands-on collaborative learning experiences using the Minnetonka curriculum that meet district and state standards. These complex lessons reflect the complexities that students need as 21st century learners. We hold students to high academic standards while still targeting and supporting their areas for growth. This means I meet students where they are and continue to challenge them to help them move forward to where they need to go. I communicate and collaborate with families. This might mean a phone call home to let parents know that I'm concerned about their student. And it means a phone call home to let parents know how wonderfully their student is doing and how they are growing and progressing in their work and as a person. And every day I make space for joy and connection with my students. This might be high fives at the door or an impromptu dance party. But every single one of those small moments adds up to create a learning community where we are all known, heard, and respected.
Hi, I'm Heather Daldoul, the English learner teacher at Clear Springs. Our department consists of myself and Tammy Brady, who is our full-time EL para. At Clear Springs right now, we have 25 students that are identified as English learners. Part of our job there is to assess and identify students that qualify for English support services in accordance with state and federal law. I plan, organize, and provide instruction for English language development, support the core curriculum through an EL lens, and collaborate with staff to ensure English learner success in all areas of learning. I also monitor students that have reached English proficiency goals after they exit services. I help English learner families connect to school, community, and needed resources, support school communication with English learner families through the use of interpreters, cultural liaisons, and technology. One of my favorite parts of this job is to act as a bridge between cultures and to create a learning environment conducive to learning language where students feel safe and diversity is celebrated. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Tammy Brady again. Like Heather just said, I work for the English Learner Department as well as the Advanced Learning Team. And the Advanced Learning Team actually covers quite a few different programs, and here's a brief explanation of each of the programs. The first picture you will see there is Project Think. It is a STEM-based program, meaning it's designed for the hands-on visual learner. Students research, build, test the product, make alterations, continue to test and build. You can see that they're building some skyscrapers there and testing them for durability and strength. That consists of, there are 144 students who are worked with they work with para for 4 6-week units throughout the year. And the next two pictures are the investigations programs, and they center on individual needs as well as small groups. Students choose to research an area of interest, then develop a product to support their research and take their work back to the classroom to present to their classmates. Also included in investigations is a mathematical investigation which centers on problem-solving strategies, mathematical discussions, and research. And the number of students served in this course over the year is 136. In the final picture there is an in-classroom lesson using thinking skill of Scamper, and how we can change a product to make it new and possibly better through substitutions, combinations, adaptations, modifications, put to new uses, eliminate, and rearrange. We're never at a short for acronyms in this school, are we? The goal is to get into every classroom, grades 1 through 5, for short units throughout the year. And let's see. Some of the other programs that are mentioned at the bottom there, reading and math enrichment for grades 1 to 3. There are small groups of students selected through NWEA achievement scores, and they work with books like junior grade books and some other books of interest. Also, Samantha Howard, one of our 3rd grade Spanish teachers, works daily to enrich 2nd grade math students during her English language time. Another program, Academic Extensions. It's built for students in kindergarten and 1st grade. Oh, yeah, I'll be there next, yep. Who are outliers in the area of math and or reading. This enrichment program is for strong achievers that go beyond the 99th percentile and NWEA tests. On this slide, there are 3 different grade levels of the WINGS program. It's a pull-out program serving the academic and social-emotional needs of the gifted learner. Each 7-week unit includes topics that are novel, such as architecture, cultural connections, flight, as well as having built-in affective strategies such as how to deal with perfectionism, underachievement, anxiety, and friendships. Students meet in small groups for about an hour each cycle. The current number at Clear Springs is 96 students, but by year end, there will be about 120 students. Another program that falls under advanced learning is early enrollment. Families with students that are turning 5 between September 1st and October 31st can apply for early enrollment. The process for EE or early enrollment is extensive and can be found, the details can be found on the Minnetonka Academics tab. The applications for this range from about 8 to 20 each year. Other programs that we offer, I know it's a long list. It covers a lot of things. We have the geography bee and the stock market game. And last year, I'm very proud to say that Clear Springs had a team of 4th grade girls place 3rd in the state. Another program is Talk Online. It's a weekly class taught to a group of 4th grade students who are home for the year. Units this year have included mythology, inventions, speeches, and mathematical mysteries. Da Vinci Hall is another program that is a work in progress. Our hope is to have a hands-on hallway for children to touch, experiment, and think as they pass through Think Children's Museum. The Advanced Learning Program and the staff at Clear Springs, under the leadership of Mr. Carpenter, does a terrific job, and I can speak all of the teachers here today. All of the teachers at Clear Springs, they do a terrific job of supporting the academic needs of advanced learners. However, the social and emotional needs of gifted learners is always high, and even more so now after the months these students have had. And finally, a personal note from Joan Larson to Dr. Peterson. She wants to express her gratitude for Dr. Peterson, who has always recognized the needs of gifted learners. She's grateful for the support, and again, recognizing the needs of gifted learners.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your retirement. Thank you.
And
And if you thought this group was big, I mean, we could have brought explorers, speech, art, classroom music, media band. You can see the whole list there. There's so many things we could have highlighted tonight. We're really proud of our school community and all of the great services we offer. But I'll stop now and ask if you have comments or questions for me or for anyone in the group.
Any questions or comments from the board? Let's see one coming, maybe. Lisa?
I have a question for you. I've asked this of a number of principals, and thank you for the great presentation for all of you. It's so good to see a lot of familiar faces. Hello, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if you have one or two COVID silver linings that you'd like to share with us. Something that you've found through COVID that maybe, you know, has changed the way that you've done business and that you want to keep carrying forward no matter what.
I mean, we could all guess the obvious ones, different ways to hold meetings, both special education meetings, general staff meetings. The way that we communicate has been totally changed, but you know, it's been hard. I'm not going to say it hasn't. It's been very hard for parents, for kids, and for staff. But it's changed the way we have relationships. I think in many ways we're closer than ever before. We're very aware of anxiety and stress in kids, perhaps more than ever before. So I just keep reminding myself, and I try to remind the staff, you know, each day we do a mindful minute. I try to have positive music as we think about our day. And I am constantly looking forward to what's next. And we are going to be stronger and better. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you and all your staff that isn't here for all that you've done, because I know it's been a challenging couple of years. So.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I will say one thing that just came to mind. I was watching an advanced learning lesson once, and the teacher said, first graders, what you're about to do is hard, but it's a good hard. And when you're done, you're going to be really glad you did it. And that's, I think, my answer, Lisa. This is a good hard. We're going to be all right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else? I just want to thank, I hope I have everybody, David, Heather, Lacey, Rachel, Amy, Kelly, Liz, and Tammy. I think I got everybody. Thank you so much from the board, from me and Principal Carpenter. We really appreciate it, echoing the comments from Lisa. And we really appreciate what you've done. I was missing my mindful minute, so we can work that in next year, maybe. And we just really appreciate it. So thank you, and thank you for the great presentation. It is now time for community comments. Community comments is an opportunity for the public to address the school board on an item included in this agenda in accordance with the guidelines printed at the end of this agenda. We have 4 members of our community that wish to speak with us, so I will go ahead and read the guidelines. Welcome to the Minnetonka School Board meeting. In the interest of open communications, the Minnetonka School District wishes to provide an opportunity for the public to speak to the school board. That opportunity is provided at every regular school board meeting during community comments. Anyone indicating a desire to speak on an item included in this agenda, except for information that personally identifies or violates the privacy rights of employees or students during community comments, will be acknowledged by the board chair. When called upon to speak, please state your name, address, and topic. All remarks shall be addressed to the board as a whole and not to any specific member or to any person who is not a member of the board. If there are a number of individuals to speak on the same topic, please designate a spokesperson that can summarize the issue. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Longer time may be granted with the discretion of the board chair. If you have written comments, the board would like to have a copy, which will help them better understand, investigate, and respond to your concern. During community comments, the board and administration listen to comments. Board members or the superintendent may ask questions of you in order to gain a thorough understanding of your concern, suggestion, or request. If there's any follow-up to your comment or suggestion, you will be contacted by a member of the board or administration. Please be aware that disrespectful comments or comments of a personal nature directed at an individual either by name or inference will not be allowed. Personnel concerns should be directed first to a principal, then to the executive director of human resources, then to the superintendent, and finally in writing to the school board. First up, I have Melinda Andrews to talk about masking options. Melinda, while you're coming up, just so you guys know, I will start a timer for your 3 minutes, and I will.
Make me more nervous, right?
But you can get it out of the way. But
Get it out of the way. Thanks.
welcome.
Thank you. I'll get that out of the way too. My name is Melinda Andrews, and I live in Chanhassen, and this is my second time speaking. I've been doing a lot of research over the last couple months, probably about 6 months, in trying to understand COVID a lot better. I've had some family issues with the disease that has caused me to be personally deep dive, and with my educational background, I have found a lot online. I know what I'm going to say tonight may make some people uncomfortable. These are facts. These are things that have been charts and articles and things that have been talked about, and I'd like to bring it up. In the board meeting agenda, it shows that you're looking at options for how to tell whether to take the masks off at the schools. And one of them, or a couple of them, show that there's vaccine quotas. And I really find that unethical for children for several reasons. The potential thought of tying a vaccine quota to masking coerces families to jab their children. Any coercion of an EUA product is unlawful and against the Nuremberg Code. Under Federal Regulation 21, Code Section 50.20, 23, and 24, no one can be forced or coerced into a clinical trial of an experimental medical countermeasure. Point number 2, children up to 17 years old, and this is the chart I'm showing here. I'm sorry that you guys don't have it. It's from the CDC. The blue boxes are the children aged 0 to 17. And that's the data from February 2020 through September 2021. That there's a very small chance of hospitalization or death from COVID for children. And that's through September. We're on to Omicron now, and it's way less of a chance. Children, not even children, people, looking at what the South African doctors have been stating, as well as other doctors across the world. People are experiencing very mild symptoms, and in particular that are very similar to a cold. So what is the benefit of a child taking a vaccine? I look at it, it's extremely low. There is no benefit to the children. They assume all the risks of these experimental vaccines. Without knowing the long-term consequences, we have no idea of what was put into a new technology and injected into our children, what it'll actually do. I mean, we see some insights. Can I have one more minute?
Finish up, please.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks. We see some insights, and on the back you can see in Hong Kong, 1 in 2,700 boys aged 12 to 17 got myocarditis after their second shot. Myocarditis has been stated in the news that it's mild and goes away. Listening to cardiologists, it does not. It's with you for your life and can impact you. The other thing I wanted to note is that on October 22nd, 2020, FDA held a meeting, and this is the famous slide 16, which shows all the adverse events that happened in the clinical trials that was not shared with any public person, any person in the United States. And then my last point is looking at Omicron and looking at the mild symptoms. What is the purpose of the COVID vaccines at this point? I'm actually honestly asking, I've actually posted it. I would like to have a discussion with somebody about it, but done.
You've already made sure that you got, that we have all the information, so thank you.
Yes, you can look at it.
Next up, we have Suzanne Shayer. to talk about the Safe Learning Plan. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for what all of you do. My name is Suzanne, and I live in the district, Chanhassen, and as part of our district's Safe Learning Plan, students are still encouraged to get vaccinated as soon as possible, despite the following facts. The COVID survival rate for 0 to 19-year-olds is 99.73%. These experimental vaccines were never properly tested, and the government stats for vaccine injury and death are off the charts. But tragically, this information gets either suppressed, censored, or simply not reported in mainstream media. You have to seek truth out yourself. On the CDC.gov website, you can access VAERS, which stands for Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. According to VAERS, as of December 24th of last year, due to taking one of the COVID vaccines, there were already over 22,700 deaths and over 1 million adverse events, including neurological issues. To put this in historical perspective, any other vaccine rollout would have been halted indefinitely with 5 to 50 deaths. A leading American cardiologist and medical professor who took a closer look at these numbers stated that there have been over 13,000 certified cases of myocarditis, pericarditis, which is inflammation of the heart, as a direct result of receiving a COVID vaccine. The majority of these cases have been in male children starting at puberty. You may think that number 13,000 is no big deal, but imagine if it's your child or nephew or grandchild who is first hospitalized and then can't do any non-essential activity for at least 6 months due to the condition. Then all of a sudden it becomes a much bigger, life-changing, and possibly life-threatening ordeal for these kids and their families. Something else brought to my attention was that one of our elementary school principals was heard telling kids at dismissal that they should be a superhero and get vaccinated. Is that a new part of their job, to encourage young children to take an experimental, or I would argue unnecessary, ineffective, and potentially dangerous injection? This is something that should be strictly between a parent, their child, and their doctor. It is highly inappropriate for school staff to be making such comments. The CDC and FDA are not following the data. We are behaving like sheeple who can't think for ourselves, just going along in lockstep. It's past time to use our common sense, logical thinking, and muster up some courage to push back against the craziness going on. I hope that any parent thinking about getting their child vaccinated or boosted checks into some of the problems raised here. Please look into these numbers for yourselves to determine if the benefits outweigh the risks of getting vaccinated. We must not allow fear to become our religion or government to become our God. Thank you.
Thank you. And if, again, if anyone has written comments, please, and would like to share them with the board, please leave them over there and we'll make sure that the board gets them. Next up is Jin Bang to talk about the Safe Learning Plan. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm not here to talk about the science or anything like that, and I urge you guys to do your own research, whether that's through checking scientific journals and peer-reviewed articles from scientists in this field and experts in this field. But what I'm here to do is actually provide a student perspective on how the Safe Learning Plan is working at the high school, and the answer is that it isn't. Currently, as the school board already knows, tomorrow the high school is going to be online due to the fact that there are not enough teachers to teach the students. And I think our biggest concern should be that people's education is being disrupted, and whether that's because they're taking a vaccine or wearing a mask is not really the issue. Like, the issue is that classes of like 30 plus kids are now down to 6 kids, and kids are being quarantined. And It's obvious that COVID spreading is an issue, and whether COVID has drastic consequences like hospitalization isn't the point for younger kids. It's about the fact that, like, one of my teachers of the classes that I personally take has been gone for like a month. He's been gone for a month because he has had COVID, and that has disrupted my pathway in this course majorly. And the science shows that the way that we can prevent COVID is through having safe learning plans and masks and vaccines. And whether that's supposed to be mandated or not isn't the issue, but what I'm telling you right now is that what we have going on right now is not working. COVID cases are just increasing. More kids are missing school. You could literally talk to any high schooler and they will tell you that they know multiple people who currently have COVID right now and are staying at home. And when they're staying at home, not only is they can't attend their classes, they have to be quarantined at home, or they're risking other people's lives, they're risking their teachers' lives, they're risking the staff's lives. And so it's more than just about the younger kids or kids who have healthy immune systems, because that's not the only people who are at risk here. And so I'm just here to tell you that nobody's being forced. If people, I personally think that there should be a mask mandate, and that if people aren't willing to comply with the mask mandate, they're not being forced, they just won't be able to come to school and access the privileges like any other vaccine and health requirements that we have for a student to come to school, which already exist. And so I just urge you to think about the actual impacts from a student who is coming to tell you how this is impacting her education. And as you guys introduced yourself, you said that you value student voices. And so I'm standing here telling you right now that what you have working is not working at all. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last community member is Amy Cho to talk about the Safe Learning Plan. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Dr. Amy Cho. I'm a mother of 3 Minnetonka
Sorry, you still have time. Sorry.
elementary school students, and I'm a practicing emergency physician. I want to thank you for all the hard work that our district teachers, staff, and leadership have done over the past almost 2 years to keep our children safe and in school. I'm here tonight to ask that you continue the universal mask requirement for the near future until the Omicron wave subsides. This variant is likely the most contagious infectious disease we know of, more contagious or as contagious as measles. Masking may not be enough to completely stop the spread, but it will likely help to slow the spread. Research done by Dr. Robbie Sika, who's an Orono resident and the Timberwolves doctor, you may know him, was just published yesterday actually, that showed that rapid antigen tests are not sufficient and have false negatives for the first 2 days of infectiousness. So it's not going to be a great option for us to prevent the spread of Omicron at school through rapid testing. Masks thus remain an important layer of protection to slow and prevent spread. I work in an emergency department, and part of my administrative responsibility is ensuring that staff are there to take care of patients in emergencies. I've worked for the same group for 13 years now, and we've never had a shift go uncovered, ever. Never. But we're talking about that right now and what's going to happen if that happens. Because I'm sure you're coping with the same pressures in our schools as we are as in the hospital. And mathematically, the center cannot hold and we cannot staff our hospitals or our schools if all of our essential workers get sick at once. It's not possible. So I would like my 3 children, to have the greatest chance of staying in school in person. And so I would urge you to continue the mask mandate for the next month. And I would actually urge you to go further and implement a temporary universal mask mandate at the high school so that they can stay open as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all of our community members for giving your feedback to the board. We do appreciate hearing from our community. We now have a bunch of items dealing with the organization of the board. We will take each item one by one. So the first item is fixing the day, time, and place of each regular board meeting. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the first item is the regular meetings of the board, and we've recommended that you continue to have those on the first Thursday of every month, so that's what's proposed.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Can I have a motion to fix the following date, time, and place for each regular board meeting during 22 as presented as 7 p.m. on the first Thursday of every month? There will be no meeting in July. Board meetings are held here in the community room at 5621 County Road 101.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mark? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is fixing the day, time, and place of study sessions. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you've evolved over time to having the study sessions on the third Thursday of each month and starting them at 6 o'clock. The proposal basically follows that expectation, except that in February and October, it would be on the fourth Thursday, not the third Thursday.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Can I have a motion to fix the following date, time, and place of each school board study session during 22 as presented?
So moved.
Patrick, second?
Second.
John, thank you. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is setting of salaries. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as you know, there are various salaries for different positions on the board, as well as members, and also for meetings you attend. You know, this is clearly the board's purview, but you know, we've given you what we're now set for those salaries. My own thought is it's a good time to increase some of those salaries. The board's been working a lot of extra time and making sure that the programs in the district work, the safe learning plan is effective and so forth. So that's up to you, of course, but that's what we've provided you.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Can I get a motion? Please note, as Dr. Peterson said, that the salaries as presented are the same from previous years. But can I get a motion to set the board salaries for each position for board chair, vice chair, clerk, treasurer, and board director as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mark? Lisa, Mark? Discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is the resolution designating depositories. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there's a need to have a variety of depositories of district funds for various purposes. Most of the district's ongoing funds are kept in the Allowance Financial, which is really the local bank, but there are some of these other institutions as far away as New York and California, Massachusetts. So we really need to have you designate all of these for the variety of purposes that you have for them.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt our designating depositories as presented?
So moved.
Mark, second?
Second.
John? Questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the resolution appointing school attorneys. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you've also used different law firms for different functions in the district, and your general counsel is Kennedy and Graven, but there are reasons to have the other firms or individual attorneys represent the district in various matters. So I'd recommend that you adopt all of those.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Can I have a motion to approve our school attorneys as presented?
So moved.
Lisa, second?
Second.
Mark? Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is designation of official newspaper and alternative dissemination of bids and quotes. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we're kind of down to one logical choice anymore of a newspaper that really serves our community. And so we're recommending that you use the Sun Sailor. And then, of course, the alternative ways of disseminating bids and quotes.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Can I have a motion to authorize the Sun Sailor as the official newspaper for 2022?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Lisa. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Wasn't sure if I could do both at the same time, so can I have a motion to authorize the use of the district website as an alternative means of dissemination for district bids, quotes, and requests for proposals?
So moved.
Patrick? Second? Lisa? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is the designation of official radio station for emergency announcements. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, for many years now, the district has had a much more effective way of communicating specific messages through, electronic means to all of our citizens. But we still use the WCCO radio and some others to disseminate messages out to the community. Not everybody who has an interest in what the school is doing on any given day of an emergency is on the list of calls. So, we'd still recommend that you have WCCO as the primary official radio station.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to designate radio station WCCO AM as the official station during 2022 for emergency school announcements such as the closing of school due to inclement weather?
So moved.
Mark, second?
Second.
John? Any discussion? It's just for the public, just a note that emergency school announcements will also be called into TV channels 4, WCCO 5 KSTP and 11 KARE, and will be posted to the district's website. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the appointment of auditor. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, one of the most important things you do is to appoint an auditor, because that firm annually analyzes the transactions and other operations of the financial part of the district. And you're managing about $200 million a year on the average. And so you need to be comfortable that the auditor that you're appointing meets your needs. We're recommending that you, again, use Clifton Larson Allen, which has been the firm you've used for a number of years, as well as their predecessor firm before there was a merger. So I would recommend that you appoint them again.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to appoint the firm of Clifton Larson Allen LLP to conduct the annual audit in 2022?
So moved.
Lisa, second?
Second.
Patrick? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is setting of superintendent evaluation dates. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you do 2 evaluations a year for the superintendent, and one about mid-year or in February generally, and then the other one in June and near the end of the year. The dates that are proposed are just that. If you have a reason to change any of those, now would be an appropriate time to change them, or if you determine after the fact that you need to change them, that's fine too.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. There is one change, I think, from the board, is the June 23rd board review of the evaluation with the superintendent. I would like to move that to June 22nd.
Okay.
So I hope that works for board members. So with that change, can I have a motion to approve the setting of the superintendent evaluation dates as presented?
So move.
Mark, second?
Second.
John, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is setting of mileage allowance for business purposes not covered thereby through negotiated agreements. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you do have some employees who make their claims on travel based on the mileage rate. And what the board has done over the years is use the IRS adopted rate, which for this year is 58.5 cents per mile. I have to smile when I see that because for many, many years it was 7 cents a mile. And, we've seen some inflation. So I'd recommend that you adopt that IRS rate.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Can I have a motion to authorize the IRS approved rate of 58.5 cents per mile for personal automobile usage for school purposes in 2022?
So move.
John, second?
Second.
Patrick, thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our last item in this group is the determination of board committee assignments. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at your study session at the end of December, you went through and talked about who might take each of these assignments. So we've submitted the list with those choices. Obviously, any one of them could be changed by the individual who's in that slot saying they don't want to do that anymore. So we put that all together, and so you can adopt it as one, or if you want to go through each one, you can do that.
I would say we adopt it as one. Can we have a motion to approve the board committee assignments as presented?
So move.
Mark, second?
Second.
John? Any discussion? I would just say that the committees are AMSD, Association of Metropolitan School Districts, the MTA Liaisons, the Finance Advisory Committee, Materials Review Committee, Teaching and Learning Advisory, Minnetonka Foundation, PTO, PTA Leaders, Special Education Advisory, Tonka Cares, Mental Health Advisory, CASE, Community Education Advisory, Preschool and ECFE Advisory, and OPEB Advisory. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is a review of the survey results. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as you know, one of the expectations and the goals that you've adopted this year is that we do a survey of students, staff, and parents to see what their thoughts are on the safe learning plan that you've adopted, and provide any insights that might be useful to the board in moving forward. So in mid-December, we developed that survey. We had a lot of input from the PTA, PTO leaders in the district, so we had got a lot of parent input on that, and some input from Mr. Holcomb, who was a board member who was at that meeting as well as input from staff and administrators before we did the survey. And so we think the simplicity of the survey, as well as the opportunity to just answer a number of important questions and to provide comments is very helpful to administration and the board. I would say the comments are very helpful. We've categorized some of them so that you know about how many different people had similar kinds of comments. And so the results were very positive in terms of the response. I know people who are not statisticians think that maybe the turnout was low. Statistically, for this kind of a survey, the results were very strong in terms of the number of people surveying, and you can safely say with very great confidence that it represents the students in the case of the student survey, parents in the case of the student or parent survey, and staff members in the case of the staff. And then, of course, we were able to disaggregate a lot of the data by level of education and so forth. So we can really provide a lot more insight into the attitudes and the thoughts and opinions of these people in the future if the board wants to look at more detail. For example, if you want to look at students who are receiving special education services and how their parents responded, you can do that. You can go school by school. So there's lots of different ways, and people who love data like that opportunity. People who don't are kind of bored by it. But we're going to go through the major results tonight, and I think you'll see as you go through here one major point, and that is there's some strong feelings on either end of every question. So there's some people who feel strongly here, some people who feel strongly in the opposite direction, and those people are never going to agree on anything. So they're always going to feel like whatever we're doing is crazy or dumb or not the right thing. But in the broad middle, which is true in most of the survey questions, there's a lot of support for what we're doing, and certainly a sense that the Safe Learning Plan is working well for students and staff in our schools. So I'm going to have Dr. Amy Ledoux go through the results for you, and I don't know if we want to be able to stop as we go for board questions or wait until we get all the way through them.
We certainly could stop if
Whatever you
prefer.
would
If you'd
prefer.
rather have me go all the way through and see if the questions are answered, whatever you prefer.
I would say that we can go all the way through. If there's something that a board member, feel free to, but let's plan on getting through all of it, and then see the entirety. We can always go back if we need to. I would say let's do that.
Great. So,
Well-
Dr. Ledoux, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Peterson, Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight to share with you our stakeholder survey results related to the Safe Learning Plan. As Dr. Peterson mentioned, the intention of the survey really was to provide an opportunity for our stakeholders to share more with us about their lived experience with this plan in our schools during this school year. And also then to provide us with that valuable information as an additional component as you look at and consider any changes, adjustments, or next steps for the Safe Learning Plan going forward. As the survey was initially developed, we gathered input for the questions really from a variety of people. We shared it with the principals multiple times. We took it to the district level, well, the district level leaders worked on it. We took it to our PTO and our PTA parent leaders, and we had a board representative as a part of that group. As you can see, we administered that survey in mid-December. Parents and staff had a little more time. Students were a little tighter window, but all students, staff, and parents had an opportunity. It was an optional survey, as all of our surveys are for students. We notify parents ahead in case they want to talk with their student. We allow them to preview it, and we felt that we had a really great response. It was distributed to 7,749 students, and that's because we distributed it to our 4th through 12th grade students. We felt that those were the ages that could adequately respond and answer the questions. And then also 12,960 parents and 1,918 staff. We were really pleased to see the high response rate. As you can see, 4,502 students responded, 3,914 parents, and 57 staff. We're really appreciative of all of our students, staff, and parents that took the time to really read through this and to give us their thoughtful responses, especially, as Dr. Peterson said, all of the written comments, which all of you I know have had an opportunity to review, and I know the administrative team has read through all of those. And so very helpful to us. And really our goal is to use this feedback to really help to better support our teachers, our students, and our parents or families as we continue to work through COVID together. We know it's been a challenging year, and yet we continue to look for ways to make this as positive as we can for everyone involved. So just to break down those responses so you can get a little bit of a better idea, you can see we had just under 1,200 elementary students, again with only 2 grade levels. That's a good representative group. At the middle school, just over 1,500, and at the high school, just over 1,800 students. As we look at parents, 2,167 of our early childhood through grade 5 parents responded, 885 of our middle school parents, and 862 of our high school parents. And then as we look at our staff, when we look at early childhood through grade 5, 343 staff responded. At grades 6 through 8, 141, and in grades 9 through 12, 114. And then other staff were 59, and those could be staff at this building, the tech center, or working with our 18 to 21-year-old students. Then if we look at our survey another way, we wanted to give all of our stakeholders an opportunity to communicate what services and programs. We really wanted to be able to say, okay, what are the differences, not only by grade level, but are there any differences based on the programs or services that students receive or participate in order to identify if there were any anomalies. This represents our students, and you can see on this one, we also gave the choice of immersion. So you see, it's a pretty small number that don't receive any of these any of these services, less than 40%. Then as we go on to look at our parents, on this one we did not have the immersion choice. So you see that my student not receiving any services is slightly higher, or quite a bit higher actually. But again, you can see that it's a pretty representative group of our staff and the types of services and programs reflected in these results. So as we walk through the questions, you'll see that these first few questions start out really representing the question that we asked our students, but then there's a parallel question that we asked parents and that we asked staff. So the first question, my learning has advanced considerably thus far this year compared to last year, with parents answering for their students, teachers answering collectively for their students. When we look at all students, 73% strongly agreed or agreed, 20% were neutral, and 7% disagreed or strongly disagreed. When we look at our parents, 69% strongly agreed or agreed, 20% were neutral, and 11% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And when we looked at our staff, 52% strongly agreed or agreed, 29% were neutral, and 19% disagreed or strongly disagreed. When we looked at elementary students, they were slightly higher, 82% feeling positive or strongly agreeing or agreeing, 16% were neutral. At the middle level, it dropped slightly, 72% strongly agreed or agreed, and 22% were neutral. And then at the high school level, just slightly less than the middle school, with 69% strongly agreeing or agreeing, and 22% being neutral. Elementary parents, 74% strongly agreed or agreed. Middle school, slightly less, 65% of our parents strongly agreed or agreed, and high school parents, 71% strongly agreed or agreed, so slightly higher for our high school parents. And then when we looked at staff, elementary staff, 46% strongly agreed. Middle school staff, 58% strongly agreed. And our high school staff, 64% strongly agreed or agreed. The next question asked, how do you believe you are learning this year compared to pre-COVID? Again, with those parallel questions for our parents and staff. As we looked at all students, 37% thought they were learning at a faster rate. 44% thought it was a similar rate or the same rate. And 19% thought it was a slower rate. When we looked at parents, 19% thought students were learning at a faster rate. 58% thought students were learning at a similar rate. And 23% thought students were learning at a slower rate. When we looked at staff, we see a little bit of, we see a significant decrease or a different viewpoint. 60% learning at faster rate, 35% learning at the same rate, and 59% learning at a slower rate. At the elementary, our students said 33% faster, 51% the same, and 16% slower. Middle school was 34% faster, 45% the same, and 21% slower. At the high school, it was 42% at a faster rate, 38% at the same rate, and 20% slower. And we did wonder with that high school number being back in person, I'm sure that that has had some impact on how they're feeling about the rate of their learning. Elementary parents, 18% faster, 60% the same, 23% slower. Middle school, similar, 18, 59, and 23. And the high school, parents, 22% thought it was faster, 55 about the same, and again, 23% slower. So some pretty consistent viewpoints from our parents. And then for staff, elementary felt that 4% were faster, 39% were the same, and 59% were slower. Middle level, 11% were faster, 31% were the same, and 58% were slower. And then high school, 6% were faster, 28% the same, and 66% slower. And as you know, our teachers cover a great deal of curriculum at a pretty rapid pace in our district. And so I'm certain with the changes and with all of the additional elements due to COVID, that they are feeling some differences this year in the pace of their instruction and therefore their care and concern for our students and their learning. The next question was about good connections between students and teachers thus far this year. Again, it was personalized to each group of stakeholders. When we asked all students, 76% strongly agreed or agree that they've made good connections. 17% were neutral, and 7% disagreed or strongly disagreed. When we asked parents, 79% strongly agreed or agreed that there were good connections between their student and their teachers. 13% were neutral, and 8% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And then when we asked all staff, 83% strongly agreed or agreed, 11% were neutral, and 6% disagreed or strongly disagreed. At the elementary level, 77% strongly agreed. For our students, at the middle level, it was 71% of our students, and at the high school level, it was 75% of our students who agreed or strongly agreed. Elementary parents, 86% strongly agreed. Middle level parents, 72% strongly agreed, and high school parents, 71% strongly agreed. At the staff level, elementary staff, again, 86% strongly agreed. Middle level, 77% strongly agreed, and at the high school level, 83% strongly agreed. And again, I'm sure for our staff, having the opportunity to be in person this year really is positively impacting their ability to make those ongoing day-to-day connections and have those interactions with our students. The next question we asked was a question that we only asked our students. And we asked them if there is an adult at their school that they feel comfortable going to if they have a problem. For this one, 64% of our students said yes, 14% said no, and 22% said they were not sure. At the elementary, 73% said yes. At the middle level, it was a little bit lower at 56%, and at the high school level, it was 66%. This was really important information for our administrative team to know, and this really is an actionable item. This is an item that we're going to be, digging further into. We're not certain what the impacts of COVID have been over the past 2 years fully, but this is an area that it seems like it has more significantly impacted, both probably because of some of the transitions, the changes, and the various models. And it seems to be impacting our students' sense of connection. We'll be really working to address this by identifying what resources there are available to support students and to make sure students know how to access staff and when and where they can if they're having a problem or have a specific need. And then, of course, continuing to just work to reestablish those connections with our students. And, this is a really important area to us. We really believe that it's absolutely essential for each student in our schools to have an adult that they feel comfortable to and that they know they can go to. So that will be a priority area for us. The next question went into the elements of the safety plan. I believe the district's current mask requirements keep students and staff safe. Again, all students, 57% strongly agree or agree, 21% were neutral, and 22% disagreed or strongly disagreed. When we looked at all parents, 62% agreed or strongly agreed, 11% were neutral, and 27% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And then when we asked staff, 72% strongly agree or agree, 10% were neutral, and 18% disagreed or strongly disagreed. When we looked at it by level, elementary students, 59% strongly agreed, middle school students, 55% strongly agreed, and high school students, 57% strongly agreed. When we looked at parents at the elementary level, 69% strongly agreed, 21% disagreed. At the middle school level, 63% strongly agreed, 27% disagreed. At the high school level, 43% strongly agreed, 15% were neutral, and 42% disagreed or strongly disagreed. So you see at that level was the level where there was more of a balance between the views of agreeing and disagreeing in terms of the percentages. When we asked staff, elementary staff, 81% strongly agreed, 12% disagreed. Middle school staff, 76% strongly agreed, 13% disagreed. And at the high school level, 42% strongly agreed, 39% disagreed that the current mask requirements keep students and staff safe. The next question, as you can see, is another mask question. We ask questions about masks in a variety of different ways by design to give people multiple opportunities to respond. I believe the district should require masks for all grades at this time. When we asked all students, 44% agreed, 34% disagreed, and 22% were not sure. When we asked parents, 41% agreed, 32% disagreed, 6% were not sure, and 21% said this question does not apply to me. This was a question that when we met with the PTA, they had some questions because they thought that, if in fact their student wasn't impacted by this change, that they maybe shouldn't be answering that. So we felt like that number was elevated, maybe as a result of that at the elementary and middle school level, if they didn't have students at those levels. And then when we asked staff, 60% agreed, 21% disagreed, and 19% were not sure. Again, at the beginning, I told you that we wanted to really look at these results to say, did it matter what services or programs students participated in as to what these results were? And we really didn't see a difference by service or program. The main differences we saw were by level, and regardless of the program, they seemed to follow similar trends. And we thought that was important for us to look at that and to confirm that. When we looked by level, elementary students, 65% agreed, 20% disagreed, 15% weren't sure. At the middle level, 46% agreed, 30% disagreed, 24% were not sure. And at the high school level, 35% agreed, 45% disagreed, and 20% were not sure. When we asked parents, 54% of the parents agreed, 40% disagreed, 6% were not sure. Middle school parents, again, 55% agreed, 39% disagreed, 6% were not sure. And at the high school level, 47% agreed, 44% disagreed, and 9% were not sure. And then when we asked staff, at the elementary level, 59% agreed, 19% disagreed, and 22% were not sure. At the middle level, our staff said that 64% agreed, 20% disagreed, 16% were not sure. And then finally at the high school level, 59% agreed, 26% disagreed, and 15% were not sure. The next question regarding masks asked or stated, I believe the district should not require masks at this time. When asking all students, 30% agreed, 50% disagreed, and 20% were not sure. When asking parents, 28% agreed, 62% disagreed, 7% were not sure, and 3% said the question did not apply. Again, we didn't know if that was more related to the level of their students, or we also sent this to our e-learning families, and they also could be reflected there. And then when we asked staff, 15% agreed, 74% disagreed, and 11% were not sure. Again, we looked at this against services and programs, and again did not find any significant differences for any of the stakeholder groups or at any specific level. At the elementary level, when we looked at students, 23% agreed and 58% disagreed. Middle level, 29% agreed, 51% disagreed. And at the high school level, 37% agreed and 44% disagreed. When we asked parents, 28% agreed, 63% disagreed at the elementary level. At the middle school level, 30% agreed and 64% disagreed. And at the high school level, 33% agreed and 60% disagreed. And then finally, when we asked staff, 15% agreed, 74% disagreed. Middle school, 17% agreed, 74% disagreed. And at the high school, 17% agreed and 75% disagreed. The next question asked about quarantine, and in hindsight, we really should have probably broken this question into some separate questions or an opportunity to rate each element, because people could have had different views about different elements of quarantining. But we'll share the results that we have regardless of, that possible way we could have separated the question. So this asked about the district's quarantine notification, reporting protocols, and if they kept staff and students safe. All students, 62% strongly agreed or agreed, 18% were neutral, 12% disagreed or strongly disagreed, and 8% said they didn't know. All parents, 62% strongly agreed or agreed, 21% were neutral, and 17% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And then when asking staff, 54% strongly agreed or agreed, 27% were neutral, and 19% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And we didn't see significant differences by level for that question. The next one, I believe the district's quarantine notification and reporting protocols are manageable. So again, we asked our stakeholders to look through their lens on how manageable they felt they were. Students, 53% strongly agreed, 19% were neutral, 18% disagreed or strongly disagreed, and 10% said, I don't know. All parents, 67% strongly agreed or agreed, 18% were neutral, and 15% disagreed or strongly disagreed. When we ask staff, we see a little bit of a difference. 38% strongly agree or agree, 23% were neutral, and 39% disagree or strongly disagree. This is really a challenging area for staff, as you know, they're working very hard, and it's an undertaking to manage kids coming and going and having extended different length absences and keeping them up for school. And so I think we see that management of the situation reflected in the staff's response to this question. The next question is, I believe the district's COVID protocols are too lenient, too strict, or just right. And when we look at our students and staff, we see kind of that nice bell curve that we all know so well. As we look at students, 15% think too lenient, 22% too strict, and 63% think it's about just right. For our parents, again, that nice bell curve, 18% too lenient, 21% too strict, and 61% just right. And then when we ask staff, we see a slightly different balance. 27% too lenient, 7% too strict, and 45% just right. We also had 21% say I don't know, and some of that is, I think, some of our staff that might not work directly with students in the classroom not wanting to weigh in. The next question asks, I believe the district's COVID safety protocols, including medical grade HEPA filters, increased cleaning, social distancing, and mask enforcement has helped to keep students and staff safe. Again, this is another question that in hindsight, it might have helped us to have sorted it out and allowed our stakeholders to respond to each element of the safety protocols. However, we did have many comments in the last section, as I'm sure you noticed, where people called out elements and their views, especially maybe if they had differing views than what they could respond in this question. So as we looked at this, all students, 68% strongly agreed or agreed, 22% were neutral, 10% disagreed or strongly disagreed. As we looked at parents, 75% strongly agreed or agreed, 14% were neutral, and 10% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And then as we looked at staff, 69% strongly agreed or agreed, 17% were neutral, and 14% disagreed or strongly disagreed. The next question was a question that we just asked our staff. We asked them if this year they feel connected to and supported by their supervisor. 70% strongly agreed or agreed, 16% were neutral, and 14% disagreed or strongly disagreed. And then the second question we asked is if this school year they feel connected to and supported by their peers and colleagues. And 86% agreed or strongly agreed, 9% were neutral, and 5% disagreed or strongly disagreed. While you know we've shared all the data with our principals, this is an area that will also disaggregate for them so they can have a sense of how their staff are feeling and can decide are there some action steps that they can take at the building to help make sure all staff feel supported and connected. Then when we looked at the next set of questions, we asked for our stakeholders to address what were the top challenges that they experienced this year. And as you'll recall, there was a menu of choices they could select, or they could write in options as well. So the top challenge this year for students, is self-motivation at 43%, keeping up with schoolwork at 42%, too much homework at 41%, mental health challenges at 29%, engagement with learning at 24%, and social or emotional challenges at 23%. I think it's important to note that not all of the students responded to this. As you'll recall, we had 4,502 students and 4,334 responded to this set of questions. So about 165 less than the complete survey. As we look at this, homework is one of the actionable items that, we'll look at with our principals and with our staff. There's always that balance of wanting to make sure that we're maintaining high expectations and that we're helping kids learn all that they need to learn, and that they're getting the practice that they need with their learning in order to master it. But we also want to help support our students, and if they're feeling stress about something, we want to better understand that and see if there are ways we can help. Then when we looked at our top challenges by level, while all the challenges were reflected similarly overall by students, they're in a slightly different order when you look at level. Elementary, keeping up with schoolwork was their highest challenge, then too much homework, then self-motivation, and their fourth highest selection was no challenges this year for them. At the middle school, we heard too much homework, self-motivation, social and/or emotional challenges, and mental health challenges. And at the high school level, self-motivation, keeping up with schoolwork, too much homework, mental health challenges, and engagement with learning. For the other category, we did also have several students and families write in that one of the top challenges was the quarantine learning plan. And while it didn't compare necessarily to that rank list, there were about 75 comments total between students and staff, or students and parents at different levels. So we thought that was worth mentioning. As you'll recall, last year with the executive order, districts were released from many statutory requirements. There were many provisions put in place, and there were many practices that we did differently, and there were supports for teachers to implement those practices. And with the executive order expiring, you also will recall that we worked with our MTA through negotiations to come up with a plan that would be both friendly and supportive to students and families and manageable for staff. And so we, by design, kept that plan tight. We've asked teachers to provide instruction when we know students could be gone or will be gone for an extended period. So really focusing on any COVID-related absences or an extended medically documented absence, with the idea that instruction could start as soon as we were notified. But I think there's some opportunities there for us to continue to create clarity, both with staff and with families and with students, so that we can provide the best support possible and that everybody is clear on the process to get that started for them. And then, of course, continuing to work with the MTA to find ways to support our teachers and our students. Again, this is an area that's challenging when students are gone. Teachers keeping their classroom moving in front of them and making sure they're scooping up and providing resources and supports and instruction for kids at home. And within that agreement with the MTA, we did give teachers choices as to how they might address student instruction. Live streaming is certainly one of them that we negotiated, but they also can post videos or provide other ways to give students access to their lessons and their instruction. And so that's an area that we really can continue to work to improve and, again, support teachers and students with. As we look at the next set of top challenges from our parents, the number one top challenge was no challenges. So that was really positive. The next one was connection with classmates, with 29%, engagement with learning, 21%, connection with teacher, 20%, and you'll notice that was on both the successes and the challenges. Self-motivation, 18%, and social and emotional support for my student, 15%. Again, like I mentioned, the top write-in was that quarantine learning plan. Top challenges for parents by level: elementary, no challenges, connection with classmates, engagement with learning, and connection with teachers. Middle school, no challenges, connection with classmates, connection with teachers, self-motivation, and keeping up with schoolwork. And at the high school, no challenges, self-motivation, keeping up with schoolwork, and engagement with learning. One of the things that I think is worth noting is that at all three levels, the top response from our parents were that there were no challenges this year. And I know that our staff and administrators are working really hard to meet our students' needs, and it was positive to see that many students are having a positive experience. Top challenges for staff: covering and filling absences. As you know, HR and principals continue to work together, and we're all working to find creative solutions and to meet this need, but it is certainly a challenge. 60% managing and supporting students' social, emotional, and behavioral needs. 59% meeting students' mental health needs. 53% managing their own mental health needs, and 47% supporting their colleagues' mental health needs, and then 37% student self-motivation. Again, these were the top answers for all learning levels when we separated it out, so you won't see separate slides. We know this year's been stressful, and we see that noted in the mental health challenges and needs. And as a leadership team, you know, we're concerned about our staff, and we're looking for ways that we can support them. One of the things that we're really going to elevate is that we have a great employee assistance plan that's available to all of our staff. We're going to recirculate that information because we're not sure that our staff knows that any staff member can have up to 3 visits with a counselor at no added cost to them. It's just a part of a service that we subscribe to, and that might provide supports for staff that are feeling they need more support than they currently have, or that they're able to access on their own. So really wanting to continue to support our teachers and our staff to feel they can be successful so they can meet the needs of our students. When we look at the next slide, top successes, student responses, again, the answers were pretty consistent across all learning levels. 4,287 of our 4,500 students answered this. You see connection with classmates and teachers as those top choices. So those are positive. Accessible, reliable technology for students and staff. This is great. This really reflects the great investment that we've made in our technology for our students over the years, providing one-to-one for our staff with the quality that we have, as well as the human resources and the supports that are available to help our teachers in this area. And then communication with teachers was next, engagement with learning, and they're feeling academic support and assistance. Top successes from a parent viewpoint, connection with classmates, student engagement with learning, again, accessible and reliable technology, connection with teachers, communication from and with the principals and or the district, and communication from and with the teachers. And again, those were consistent across the grade levels. The next top success is our staff responses. And again, the top success is the connection between students and teachers. Again, we know how important it is to our teachers and our students to be together in person in the classroom, and I think that's reflected there. Accessible, reliable technology for students and staff, student connections with classmates, mask guidelines for students, mask guidelines for staff, and communication from their principal and or the district. So again, you know, we see many consistencies there with the technology and with the communication from multiple stakeholder groups. Then we had our section with additional comments. And of the 4,500 students that completed the survey, 1,710 of them added an additional comment. Now, we probably could have or should have added some slides here because many of our students had funny and cute comments or created pictures with their computer, doing designs, or just little things, you know, that make you smile and laugh and appreciate their joy that they bring with them each day. So as we looked at the student responses, keep and enforce masks was 19% felt they wanted to write a comment about that, even though they had previously responded. Of those 329 students that responded that way, 28 MHS students responded that they would like to see masks added at the high school. 18% or 300 said remove the mask mandate. 7% said thank you or good job, positive feedback about what we're doing. 4% commented on the quarantine learning plan, as I addressed earlier. 3% commented on lunch, and this both was, as we heard at the last board meeting from a student, some of it was food choices and availability, really, that we've had due to supply chain and other needs. But the other piece that fit into this area really is the socialization part of lunch and kids needing to stay in regular seats and not being able to move around and interact with a variety of peers. Because for kids at school, that's a really important part of their day. And then 3% were keeping kids in school, 2% were too much homework. And again, several of these are actionable things that we can continue to work with our students on and try to address. As we looked at additional comments by level, at the elementary, they also mentioned social distancing, recess. As I just mentioned, they often connect that also with lunch. And, you know, in many of our schools, still using zones or limiting grade levels or classes on the playground at a time. Certainly heard pleas from kids who are separated in classrooms from their friends. Safety and vaccination were the other two topics. Middle also mentioned vaccination, and high school mentioned mental health, tightening COVID protocols, and vaccination. And again, with vaccination, it was both for vaccination and against vaccination. Additional comments from our parents were keep and enforce masks. And of the 889 parents that responded, I wanted to note that 83 of those were high school parents asking for us to add masks at the high school level. 23% or 564 asked us to remove the mask mandate. 15% or 349 said thank you or good job. 10% said keep kids in school. 9% said vaccination. 5% said tighten COVID protocols. 4% said loosen COVID protocols. Additional comments or parent responses. Elementary also mentioned social connection. Again, I think reflecting that lunch and recess time particularly. And quarantine concern among top write-ins. Middle school also mentioned quarantine learning plans and quarantine concerns. High school mentioned quarantine learning plans as well. And we already spoke about those items and some actions we'll take related to that. Additional comments from staff. Of the 657 who responded to the question, 291 wrote an additional comment. Keep and enforce masks was 35% or 101 of those 12 staff members at the high school level asked for masks to be added. 15% talked about heavy workloads, 14% mental health concerns, 11% challenges with quarantine learning plans, 9% meeting student needs, 9% removing the mask mandate, 9% said thank you or good job, and 8% addressed staff shortages. And again, with this, we'll continue to work with staff on balancing their needs. I know certainly the actions that you took at the last board meeting to afford some, I guess, variation in the plan that day before winter break, as well as on the upcoming late start, early release, and related to conferences, helps to address some of the needs that are being identified. And then as we looked at additional staff comments at the elementary, they also mentioned feeling unsupported or lack of prep time. Middle school mentioned student behavior challenges, and high school mentioned feeling unsupported and lack of prep time. And I think, again, that prep time goes hand in hand with some of the other challenges. You know, when they support teachers who are absent or fill in classrooms where we can't get reserves, typically that is during their prep time that they're doing that. And then we know there are a variety of other factors that have impacted student learning and teachers' experience, from the uneven and unfinished learning as a result of, you know, experiencing COVID now for more than 600 days, the student quarantining plans and managing instruction for students, some of the increases we've seen in social and emotional needs, and then, of course, you know, supporting their colleagues. And again, I know that it's very helpful, the support that you're providing our teachers with those changes to some of the upcoming school days to really support that need. Then the last question we only asked our parents, and this is a question that we also ask on our annual survey. We asked them that based on their experience with the Minnetonka schools thus far in the 21-22 school year, would they recommend their school to a friend or neighbor? And you see overall, our parent responses were 85% yes and 15% no. And compared to our annual survey, these results are significantly lower. Typically, we would be in the 90s at all three levels, with the elementary being in the high 90s, middle school in the middle, and high school also near the middle. And then you can see that variation follows here for our families. So certainly that's something that's concerning to us and that we're wanting to keep a close eye on. And then finally, before we move to any questions or comments, I know that this is a lot to think about, a lot to take in. Again, we've all had the opportunity to read the thousands of comments that were written, and we're just so appreciative of our students, our parents, and our staff to really share those views and give us these insights so we know how to keep improving things, to, you know, make this year as positive of an experience as we possibly can. Before we wrap up, I also wanted to underscore one additional item. While there are many opportunities for us to use these results, and there's many opportunities for us to continue to improve, there's also a great deal of gratitude that was expressed through this survey. One of the top comments from all three groups was thank you. And they wanted to say thank you to everybody who has made this year successful, from you, the school board, to the staff and administrators. And they also said thank you for putting in place the Safe Learning Plan and for prioritizing keeping our students and staff safe. So I thought that was just really important to note. And in turn, I know we all have a great deal of gratitude to our students and our families for their patience and their flexibility and their collaboration throughout this year, and for our staff for continuing to partner with us and to be flexible and to pivot as things continue to change and evolve. So with that, I certainly can answer questions, as can Dr. Getty. We really partnered together in looking at the data, and she did a great deal of the coding, so a special thank you also to her for that.
Thank you, Dr. Ledoux. Any questions for Dr. Ledoux, Dr. Getty, or Dr. Peterson from the board? Just a comment. I just want to echo the board thanks, your thanks to the students and parents and staff that provided this information. You know, as part of our goals this year, we wanted to survey the community and get their feedback on the Safe Learning Plan so that we can bring that into consideration as the year goes on. And it's invaluable information, and I really appreciate you pointing out the areas, not only the results, but the areas that we're going to use and actionable items for this. So that's great.
Great. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Our next item is another review. It's the review of our Safe Learning Plan. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have another update for you on how things are going, not only with the Safe Learning Plan, but with new mandates, new opportunities that are coming down from the federal government as well as state government, and some of the evolution of the variant, or of the COVID itself into different variants, and what that appears to be doing to us and will be doing to us in the future. So we're going to kind of do this in three parts. So we're going to start with Annie Lumbar Benson, giving you an update on the not only the data, but also on some of the new details we've gotten as late as 4 o'clock this afternoon from the state. So Annie, I'll turn it over to you for that part. And then I'll follow up with some review of things we're doing and will be doing, and then the next part will be the board's discussion.
All right, Dr. Peterson, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Well, it always feels like, what's the adventure going to be since the last time I was here to fill you in? What a month it's been. I have to say, you know, I was optimistic a month ago when we presented, and things have thrown a new loop our way. So this is our dashboard that went live yesterday. As you can see by student and staff numbers, we have yet again hit an all-time high. Most of these, and I also just wanted to clarify, so when you look at the active COVID positive cases, those are unique and distinct numbers from the number that are quarantined. So when you look at students, that's a total number of 537 students that are out of school, and then staff, a total of 88 staff that are out. So they are not duplicated between these two columns, and I just did want to make that clarifying point. When these numbers went live, most of these case counts were ones that were reported as being positive over winter break. Numbers are finalized as of Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. So a handful would have been COVID positive students that were in school, but the majority of these cases were students that tested positive over winter break. So that is obviously a significant jump in numbers since our last dashboard. And again, I've shared this with you each time I've presented. This is our data from the Minnesota Department of Health for students that were in school while infectious. Again, the blue bars are last year's school year. The orange bars are this year. So this is October's. I'll go through these quickly because you've seen these before. This is at the end of October, so this was for the November board presentation. This was the December 1st, and again, I'll just point out there's a 2-week lag, so those last two orange bars are not truly representative or accurate of the data. And again, specific to students in E through 12 in Minnesota only. And then this is as of December 30th. So we would expect, again, there's that 2-week lag, but in weeks 52 and 53, those bars are quite low, because again, that's usually over winter break. So that is reflecting that students are not in school during those 2 weeks while infectious or contagious. So this is the most recent number from the Department of Health. Unfortunately, we have also seen a jump in our Hennepin County 14-day case trends. So again, looking comparatively at where we were about a month ago, the beginning of November, you can see how the numbers in Minnetonka bounced around a little bit, and then as of December 27th have jumped up pretty significantly. And again, these do not reflect those cases that have come in since that time. So we anticipate next week's numbers and the following week to be, again, significantly higher for Hennepin County. And when we look at those western suburbs, again, I've identified the cities that includes, but I'll just repeat again: Chanhassen, Deep Haven, Excelsior, Fort Snelling, Greenwood, Independence, Long Lake, Loretto, Maple Plain, Medina, Minnetonka Beach, Minnetrista, and Mound. So that's a snapshot comparatively of where we are in terms of how we look in relation to the other communities near us. So again, when we look at graphed what these cases look like, the orange line being active cases, again, you can see where we were at 12/22, pretty significant jump to the 1/5 data with 316 positive students. And again, that green line recovered, we would expect that to continue to rise, and then the yellow line are the students that are quarantined and excluded. For staff, unfortunately, we saw a really rapid rise with that from December 22nd, 9 staff members being out with active COVID cases to 57 on January 5th. And again, quarantined is up, and the number that have recovered is up. There's a missing slide. There always seems to be when I try to present. So, Andy, do you have the slide with the COVID vaccination rates on my PowerPoint? It should be the next one. If not, I'll go over them and hopefully Andy can find it. And I just wanted to say we are one of the few, if not the only district that is accessing information in real time in terms of immunizations. Not there? Okay, all right, I'll get you the slide. There were some recent changes with the Minnesota Immunization Information Connection, which is identified as MIC, that's the statewide immunization registry, and then Skyward, which is our data management system. As previously, especially with the high school students, they were the first ones to access the vaccine, so the first ones to have that information entered into MIC and Skyward. When we first started doing that, MIC did not have differentiation for the COVID vaccine types. They have now standardized that. That was a recent change that was made by MIC. Additionally, Skyward made some changes to accommodate that differentiation. So as a result, there has been some difficulty in accessing accurate immunization information for the high school. So at this point, we aren't able to accurately present the high school immunization rates because of those changes, but we do have the middle school rates. So at MME, the number of students with 1 dose of a 2-dose series is 5.1%. The fully vaccinated percentage is 59%. And again, now that all students are eligible, we've seen that number drop a little bit because before it was only the 12-year-olds and older that were eligible to access that vaccine. At MMW, 4.2% of the students have 1 dose of a 2-dose series, and the fully vaccinated percentage is 55%. That was previously 63.6%. Where we have seen a significant jump is at the elementary level, which is exactly as we expected as they expanded that COVID vaccine to kids 5 and older. So for the elementary students, 12.1% have had 1 dose of a 2-dose series, and our number of fully vaccinated elementary students is 55%. And at the last presentation, that was 4.3%. So we've seen a pretty significant rise in the number of students that have accessed the immunizations at the elementary level. And again, we talked about how Minnesota school districts compare to each other. So again, I'm providing you with this historical data. We are the black bar to put into perspective, and I'll just go through the ones that I presented previously and then get to the one for this month. So this was October, November, December, you can see where we started moving. This is January. So again, I've identified our surrounding districts, so I've used the same points of comparison for each of these. So in this particular graphic, to compare where we are in our surrounding districts, and again, this data is as of December 30th, so it does not reflect the case counts that have occurred since that time. Just to our very immediate left is Eden Prairie, so they are not identified by a letter. X is Bloomington, Y is Edina in St. Louis Park, Q is Wayzata, A is the Eastern Carver County Schools, B is Waconia, and C is Westonka. So again, all of the schools in our area had kind of been clustered in the general area. Similar trends that we're seeing here is our surrounding districts have followed the same trend that we have in Minnetonka. This is an interesting graphic that was provided by the Minnesota Department of Health that was updated as of today. The left side is hospitalizations, the right side is deaths. The green line represents fully vaccinated people, and the blue line is either unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated. So I think it's a good visual of what this looks like here in Minnesota in terms of vaccination versus unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated, with hospitalizations again on the left and then deaths on the right. Okay, so the big news. What do we know about the state of COVID in Minnesota? So unfortunately, case numbers in the state have been just rising exponentially. I was in touch with the Minnesota Department of Health earlier this week, and they said that they have been receiving nearly 3,000 school and child care cases per day since returning from winter break. That is just students, not adults. So they said cases are coming in fast and furious. What they also indicated is that Omicron transmit very quickly, with secondary spread occurring in just a few days. So as many of you have heard, seen, know, and maybe experienced personally, is that this increase in cases is really disrupting everything from testing supplies and lack of availability. They're in short supply, high demand, to testing site capacity being completely overloaded. Many of you have probably heard that the airport testing site moved to shut down walk-in appointments. They actually hit a fire hazard with the number of people that they had there. So many of the state testing sites are at capacity. They're only allowing appointments. Many of the private testing sites, the appointments are days out. And the state is expanding their testing sites. Unfortunately, none of those 3 locations are in the Twin Cities proper. So it's kind of been a perfect storm of the need for more testing and lack of availability. And what we're also finding is the home antigen tests have not been as reliable with the Omicron variant. Many people that are very symptomatic are testing negative with that, and then are testing positive with a PCR test. So, and again, we are noting that the Omicron infections appear to be milder than those of the Delta variant, although if we have more infections, this could mean that more people are hospitalized just because of sheer numbers. Omicron does appear to result in more vaccine breakthrough cases, and again, Minnesota Department of Health had indicated that the booster shots in a full vaccine series would be really important to help protect against severe disease, which is supported by that data that they're finding in the state. Okay, so this is where I said I feel like it was a little bit like being at the Scrambler at Valley Fair. So on the 27th, there was a media release from the CDC that recommended a 5-day isolation for COVID positive persons. Then on the 29th, they provided an updated release saying that didn't apply to schools or healthcare personnel, and we should continue to follow a 10-day isolation period. Then on the 4th, they changed their minds again and recommended a 5-day isolation for asymptomatic and mildly ill people, but they put significant caveats on that. So their newest guidance, just to be clear, does not apply to healthcare settings, correctional institutions, or homeless shelters. So the Minnesota Department of Health is actually still in the process of updating their guidelines because, as you can see just by the timeline, it has changed quickly and rapidly and has shifted quite a bit. So they plan on having that done by Monday, the Department of Health, in terms of updating their guidelines, and we'll be disseminating that information to the school nurse leads on our call on Wednesday. The other thing that I think is important to note, on the CDC release on January 4th, they also included that based on modeling data from the United Kingdom, they indicate that an estimated 31% of persons remain infectious after the 5th day of a positive test. So even with this change, I think it's important to note that it would not reduce risk and would likely increase the risk. And again, it comes with some caveats. It is only allowed for those with mild or asymptomatic illness. It cannot be used for those who are immunocompromised. Part of the caveat is you're required to wear a well-fitting mask through day 10 at all times if you're around others. So that includes at home and in public. And then, so part of the things that we started talking about to consider is that if a student does have a mask accommodation, we would not be able to utilize this change with them. Athletes would need to be masked fully during sports activities through day 10. They could not remove their mask during a sports event. And the CDC was also clear that students that are doing this would have to eat in isolation and not be near other students because they would have a mask removed. So again, there's some caveats that we probably need to think about and process. So what I'd really like to see is more guidance and information from the Minnesota Department of Health to really determine how could we implement this, is this in our best interest, and what do we need to do if we're going to implement this safely. And then the Minnesota Department of Health updated recommendations on January 4th. You should have copies of all of these too that were included regarding some new mask recommendations. And so some of the language, the new language that they put is just about viruses changing and that these new variants being very different than past versions and spreading more easily from person to person. So they came out strongly in recommendation of wearing high-quality masks, the KN95, N95, or the K94s, which are good at blocking the droplets. And then suggested if you can't get that type of mask, wearing a well-fitting mask with at least 2 layers of a tightly woven fabric, or using a disposable mask with a cloth mask to increase effectiveness. So you have a copy of that also. So Those are the latest information coming from the Centers for Disease Control and the Minnesota Department of Health. And again, we will have hopefully updated guidance and information on our school nurse call on Wednesday. So with that, what questions can I answer for you?
Any questions from the board?
I've got
Oh,
one.
sorry.
Andy, can you go back to slide number 1?
With the dashboard?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of the student section, do you have a breakdown by age group school, elementary, middle school?
Yes, I could easily go grab that. So I can absolutely get that for you.
Okay.
Do you want this document?
Oh, perfect. Seems so good. I won't be able to do quick math because I don't have my calculator here, but I can tell you. So at MME, it was 43. At MMW, it was 52. So 95 at the middle school, 92 at the high school, and then the rest are, 8 at MCEC. So I'll separate those out, and then the rest would be elementary.
Okay.
So roughly 180 represented between the middle schools and high school level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions? Yes, Lisa.
Thanks, Annie. It's always really helpful to see all this data, and it's a lot, and I know it has been changing really quickly.
Yes.
Really, really quickly. Do you have any sense, in your call with the nurses on Wednesday, how detailed the guidance is gonna be? I mean, it's been so in flux, and it's really difficult to follow, and I know that we certainly don't want to make decisions based on information that we don't have yet.
Correct.
Right? So.
And I think that was part of it is, as of earlier today, the Minnesota Department of Health School Division had not received the updated information from the Centers for Disease Control. So they really didn't have a lot to look at to start weighing in. And they understand that schools are scrambling and absolutely are waiting for this information. Because the timing of it all, I mean, over winter break, all the changes occurred, so none of us were in school. And when everybody got back into school, they really were desperate and saying to MDH, we really need guidance, we need help. And so I think they're aware of how we're struggling, but also want to make sure that they have all the information before they start making recommendations.
And then just a follow-up question to that, do you have any sense, or have you heard, since the CDC has kind of changed and circled back, how solid their recommendations are at this point? Do we know? No idea.
Well, as you can see by the timeline.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's like the scrambler ride. It's just one day it's one thing and the next day it's another. So I don't know. And which I've also, is also why I said we certainly look to the CDC for guidance, but ultimately at the end of the day, look for the Department of Health for our specific recommendations because they really have the pulse of what's going on in our specific state and community.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Patrick?
I have a couple of questions about the Omicron variant.
Sure, hopefully I can answer it.
So what I've been hearing is similar to what you just said, which is that it's much more infectious. There's some reports, maybe the diseases are milder, but you'll have much higher numbers. And I think from the UK and from other places that have already gone through this or have maybe had their spike, we see these vertical graphs of infections.
Correct.
And it looks like that's kind of where we are right now. Do you have any sense, have there been any modeling from MDH or anyone else about what we can expect? Like, should we be expecting a spike and then a rapid decline, a 3-week period or some other time period? I'm just wondering if you've heard anything more specific to our area.
Sure, yep, absolutely. And Mayo Clinic has done some modeling. There are some varied models out there. Mayo Clinic's is probably one of the more pessimistic ones right now that has said that we might be in this a little bit longer than anticipated. Again, it's really what I've often said from the beginning and just holds true. This virus is not behaving as we have expected. So while they are certainly projecting with modeling, and we hope that it would be a very quick rise and then a very quick decline, we don't necessarily know. And as Dr. Peterson and I have discussed, we won't know we're on the other side until we start going back down. So there's lots of modeling out there. Nobody's really quite sure if it's accurate modeling, but again, Mayo Clinic has said it's going to get much worse before it gets better. We're not there yet.
And just a follow-up to that then, is there a data metric that's sort of widely accepted for how do you know when you're on the other side? Like, is it a percentage of positivity rate? Is it incidence of cases per 100,000? Do you have a sense of what those data points are?
Nothing that I have heard or nothing that has been provided through the Minnesota Department of Health.
Thank you, Patrick. Anyone else? Great. Dr. Peterson?
Annie, I'd like that sheet back. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the data that you've heard here between the survey results and what Annie just reported kind of gives you a lot of things to think about. And we announced today that we're going to do an e-learning day tomorrow at the high school. We'd reached a point with the staff where we just weren't able to cover students the way we wanted to. So and Fridays, frankly, are tough days anyway. We have a lot of absences on Fridays normally. So, you know, if you look at COVID alone, there are not a lot of people out with COVID. But when you add it to the other people who are out for other reasons or illnesses or whatever, you know, it makes it more problematic. So we determined that of the options we have available, it would be better to have an e-learning day tomorrow at the high school. And so they'll follow a regular 6-period day, et cetera. That'll also allow the reserve teachers who are, I mean, we have a number of reserve teachers, but they're also working for other districts at the same time. They're also able to say, well, no, not today. And so you get a lot of dynamics with reserve teachers. The other part that people kind of lost track of, we were headed into a teacher shortage anyway, and particularly reserve teachers. I mean, that was going to happen no matter what. And so now with COVID, you have a lot of situations where people just aren't comfortable going into that environment if they don't have to. And if they don't need the money, they may just say, well, I'll wait till this thing kind of slows down. So you're dealing with a lot of those dynamics. So tomorrow we'll be able to shift a lot of those reserve teachers to schools throughout the district where they would have been uncovered. So we have a good chance of filling most of our needs tomorrow. And again, I want to emphasize, as Annie did, all the numbers you're seeing here are from when we weren't in school. These did not happen in school. These all came from the break. And so all those cases are going to play their way out. And so we'll get a number of staff back next week. We'll have a lot of students come back next week who would have had their time to recover and so forth. So we'll know a lot more with what happens to kids, probably even Monday, but certainly throughout the week, next week, as to whether we've got an issue or not. Obviously, there was a perfect storm of everybody being out of school, going and doing whatever they chose to do, and the more aggressive variant all came together. And so what you see are the numbers that were presented tonight and are on the dashboard. So we're going to learn a lot more about where we really stand next week as we move forward. So any questions about that part? I've got several other things to cover, but any questions about that? Patrick?
Oh, I just had a question. Dr. Peterson, you mentioned that they're not all COVID absences. Do you have a sense of what that breakdown is in terms of, I mean, I guess we've seen the COVID dashboard tells us those are all COVID absences.
Yeah, so what you see on the dashboard are COVID related. And what numbers I have in front of me are, and I sent you copies of those earlier, are COVID related. But there are, you know, just a variety of other absences that we don't provide every day to people outside the school, including myself or board members. So I don't really know what the number is on any given day, but COVID is probably 25% of it, maybe, at most. So, you know, it's just, that's how school functions anymore, is that we deal with a lot of absences, particularly on Mondays and Fridays and, you know, before holidays and things like that.
With the going to full e-learning at the high school tomorrow, and you just said Fridays and Mondays are your most challenging days. Do you anticipate having to do that Monday also, possibly?
No, I don't think we do. We've told everyone that they expect to be back in school on Monday, and we should be okay.
Okay.
But at least we're gonna start to get the feel of where we really are with this whole thing.
Sure.
I mean, the reality is, the cases are not being transmitted at school. I mean, there are certainly cases that have, you know, when I say what I just said, I know I'll have a handful of people say, well, you can't say that, but there's very little transmission at school. And so most of these are happening in social gatherings at home and outside the school. And people are, you know, not careful. I've seen situations where people are drinking out of the same beverage can or bottle, and it's like, really, during COVID, you're doing dumb stuff like that? You know, so it's, people just, you know, they kind of live like they've always lived. And so, you know, that's a long answer to your question about Monday, but we're gonna see more on Monday of where we really are.
Okay. We were even anticipating this without the Omicron virus, talking in early November. We were anticipating the two big social gatherings outside of school, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and seeing what that was going to result in. So the Omicron virus has just kind of exacerbated that.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions on that part?
Okay, so we're gonna keep developing some strategies to keep as many kids in school as possible. I know that's the board's goal, that's the parents' goal, that's students' goal, staff's goal, is to keep kids in school. So most of our challenges are gonna be having enough staff on any given day to have school and, or to have a reasonable resemblance of school. We may have some kids who have to be in larger areas than what they're normally in, just because we don't have enough people to run the classrooms. But we often don't know that till we get there. You know, so often principals are hearing from people even after school has started, I'm not gonna make it in today, and, you know, it just adds to the number. So we're gonna have some creative strategies. One of them will probably be, in order to meet staff in any given school, we may have days when we have a particular grade just not come to school that day, and they don't get instruction at all. So, for example, we might have fifth graders stay home on a given day. They don't get instruction, but we have enough staff left to cover the rest of the kids who are there. Same with the high school, same with the middle schools. That's a strategy that we're really fleshing out. We would also may run into situations where we have a lot of students out of a particular class gone. For example, on Wednesday, we had a lot of kids gone from MMW, but I walked through the entire school that day, and there were classrooms where almost everybody was there, and there were other classrooms where they probably had 40% of the kids there. So, you know, no rhyme or reason to the differences, but so we probably will look at situations where if we have a lot of students gone, it might be more advisable to just do e-learning to them and to the whole class and keep everybody in that grade or class home. So I know communications with parents will be challenging with all of that, but you know, we've got to, if our goal is to keep kids in school, that's our goal. And so we're going to be doing strategies that can make that happen, and we'll do our best to communicate with people timely and thoroughly so that they get all of it. Having said that, there's no doubt in my mind that every one of of those strategies will draw out people who criticize, what a dumb idea it was. So, it's just part of where we are now. You saw from the survey that there are people on the far end of each opinion, and they're always going to criticize whatever we're trying to do. But so those are some of the things we'll do. We could get to a point where we have to go back to e-learning with a building or with the entire district. We want to avoid that if at all possible. But we, of all districts, probably have the best ability to switch to e-learning and sustain it, because we've been on that kind of model for 10, 12 years now, probably longer than that. So, we know, despite the individual critics of e-learning, that e-learning was effective last year. Kids on e-learning did learn a lot, and but we also know that some didn't, and so we've got to balance that. The other caveat with all of this is that now we're off of the governor's order, and so we're back to existing state law. And existing state law says that even for a district like Minnetonka that's gotten all the approvals for online learning, we have to provide an in-school option for all students. So tomorrow, we're going to have the doors open at the high school for kids who want to come in and feel they have to come in to school because the law requires that. And that would be true of any of these other, moves that we might consider making, that we've got to always offer that option. Now, that may go away if the legislature meets and decides to take it away, but for now, that's the law. So any questions on any of those kinds of things
Lisa?
Can you speak a little bit to if we do have to go to some of those options you were discussing, like, unfortunately having a grade not in school, which would be terrible, but I mean, I understand we have to have staff. What types of things are you considering for families that, don't have other options for their kids?
We will always provide childcare for elementary. So whatever options we deal with, we're going to provide childcare for elementary. Now, we might have to start looking at that for middle school too, but so far we haven't heard that from parents.
And can I just add on to that, to your comment of per statute that we have to offer an in-school option? Is that across all of the schools? I mean, we would have to do, no matter what, we would have to do that at every school.
That's right.
At the high school, it's not as organized because they're, unlike at the elementary school where, it's basically providing childcare, a full childcare environment, I would say.
Well, and if we're providing e-learning, the kids who come to school would be able to get the instruction at school through the e-learning. So kind of like the December of 2020.
Yeah, the short time we went back. Yep. Okay. Sorry to cut you off, Lisa.
No, that's okay. So sorry if I'm understanding this correctly, then I just want to make sure that what I've read and what you're saying is correct, that we couldn't just say as a district, oh, we're going to completely go to e-learning and nobody's coming in the buildings.
No, can't do that. No.
Good. Anyone else? Any other questions? Patrick?
Dr. Peterson, you mentioned again the possibility of making, possibly being forced into e-learning, either building-wise or on district-wide. Do you have a sense as to, I mean, that sounds to me like a decision that would be made much more in the moment than on, for example, our calendar of monthly meetings. Do you have a sense of how that decision would be made that you can share with us?
Yeah, on any of those moves, I will inform the board of what we're considering for the next day or for a extended period of time. And individual board members can communicate back to me on that without violating the open meeting law. The board can't talk about it among themselves, or that does violate the open meeting law, but they can say, no, dumb idea, don't do that, or yeah, we support that. And so, we would then proceed, if the board wants to memorialize that with a motion at the next meeting, that's certainly doable as well. If the board wanted to, for example, say, well, let's just take the rest of January and have e-learning, you could do that tonight, and, that's how we would go. So you can do things like that, kind of anticipating, but as far as being responsive, where we say, here's this, how dire the situation's gotten. We've had more cases since yesterday, tomorrow we're gonna have to do this, and we'd like your blessing. And of course, if the board feels that on any one of these, that you need a special meeting, you can call an emergency meeting and meet and talk about it however you want to. So it's never just in the hands of administration.
And I do think, and I don't know the exact language, but the safe learning plan that we've approved does allow for the superintendent or administration to make some changes. I don't have the exact language in front of me, but there is some language in there that would allow a lot of these changes to be made. Dr. Peterson, would traditionally still inform the board and, allow us to be a part of that decision and the process that he asked, and we could do more, so.
And I guess part of my question is also similar to the one I asked Annie a few minutes ago, which is, do you have a sense of what kind of decision points or metrics you would be looking at, or you and the principals will be talking about to make those sorts of decisions?
Well, as I said, we'll continue to talk about the logistics and the challenges that each one of these models might have with it. But so much of it is, as far as making a decision, is gonna be situational.
Right.
That we the circumstances kind of dictate where we wanna go at that particular point. So that would be particularly true if we have a decision we need to make based upon students not being able to get to school. So, let's say you have a fifth grade at one of our schools where only 2 kids can come in and everybody else is at home already. We just say, well, let's have e-learning for everybody, and those 2 can stay at home tomorrow along with everybody else. So that kind of thing. The situation like we had for tomorrow at the high school, also is gonna be more, that will be staff-driven kinds of decisions, that we just aren't getting enough staff to make it today. And we were on the verge of doing that for tomorrow with some elementary schools, but by helping the reserve situation at other than the high school, we probably saved ourselves of that decision. So it's gonna be a lot of, just responding to what COVID's giving us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything else on?
No, I think, Annie talked a little bit about the new CDC decision, and, I think there's been a lot of speculation, nationally on why they did what they did. And so they're, that's why they're seeming to be uncertain about whether they really like their first decision or their last decision. So we're gonna keep track of all those things and move forward. As Annie said, the education department or the education people at the Department of Health this morning did not know the details on what was given to schools, and yet superintendents were given information on a Zoom meeting this morning that the 5-day quarantining was going to be available, and that we weren't given all the details of what those caveats are. And Annie went over all those that they have right now, but that's going to be evolving. So, we're not going to jump on the first thing that comes along, but we also realize that if it can be 5 days or 7 days, that's where we'll go. And of course, there will be, I think, an evolution of more testing available. That has to happen. There's just too much pressure to not get more testing. And that'll help us implement some ideas too. Some things where we might say, you could come back if you had a negative test. Well, I can't find any place to give you a test at all, let alone an answer. So there's gonna be a lot of kind of respond to those things.
A quick question.
Yeah.
You're talking about testing a little bit. I know some of the feedback that we've gotten in board meeting emails, and some of the feedback was about testing. I believe at the beginning of school or at some point that we were able to provide at-home tests for everyone that wanted them. Can you talk a little bit about that? Are we still going to be able to do that? Are we going to do that again, or to try to answer
Yeah,
that
I can
question?
do that, but if Annie's here, I think
Yep.
she's got more depth
Yep.
in her answer.
Sorry, Annie.
I was gonna stay up.
And the second question goes to masks.
Yes.
I know, and maybe Dr. Peterson, but it's kind of the same question. And we've gotten a lot of feedback that as Omicron's has come, and the surge in cases, is the district able to provide any testing or masks for students and staff?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have another round of home antigen tests that have been ordered, and we are waiting for the day when 11 pallets show up at the warehouse across the street. Once we get those, we actually will have the ability to put in a second order. So the minute they arrive, we are going to get those out to the schools. Each student will get one kit per student. Staff will also get one, and then we were able to order 20% extra in terms of our staff numbers, so that if we have contracted employees, that they can also utilize those. So again, once those arrive, we are going to be all hands on deck to get those out into the buildings and out into the hands of parents. And then, like I said, the second order will go in immediately, so that will be very exciting. And we also did an inventory of our masks, and we do still have a fairly significant supply of KN95 and N95 masks that are available to students and families, and we would love to share those.
Should families or students reach out to their teachers or principals, or?
Usually the office at the school, they
Okay.
can help coordinate, and the office can get those in the hands of kids and send them home with them. Yeah, so we have a lot of capacity, and we would love to get effective masks in the hands of kids and families if they want them.
Thank you, Annie.
Yeah, I mean, by quite a few, she means hundreds of thousands. From the very beginning, I've advocated the N95 or the KN95, and most people were like, well, what's the difference between masks? They're all the same. Now, all at once, you're starting to see the experts and CDC say, they really think you should have an N95. So, if there's gonna be that run, we're gonna have to have a big supply, because, we have, what do we have, roughly 12,000 people who could demand those at once, and they can't wear them, forever.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Anything else? Dr. Peterson?
I think I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. So the last item for discussion is, at our last meeting, the board determined that we would review math requirements for grades E through 8 at this meeting. As part of our packet, we have 8 options from Dr. Peterson for the, kind of helping with the discussion with face coverings with, I really look to the board to give me some guidance on how you guys would like to facilitate with that discussion. Lisa?
I think I would move that we table that discussion in light of all the information that we've gotten today, which, things are very much in flux. Annie's, I think, gonna get some pretty significant guidance in the next week or so. We're gonna learn a lot more about where the numbers are in the next week or so. I just don't think that we can make any kind of decision. So I would move that we would table that.
Okay, so you may have to help me procedurally. So there's a motion on the table to table this portion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mark is our second. So now we can open it up for, no, actually we can't. I apologize. I am sorry. We cannot open it up for comments to table, so we will have a vote. So all in favor of tabling the discussion on masking, please, or on the covering the 8 options, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So motion carries with 4 ayes and 1 nay. So we will move on to our next item, which is the update on superintendent search process. Dr., member
Chris,
of our.
Can I have a point of clarification?
Yep.
I was not aware that we couldn't procedurally discuss anything about the Safe Learning Plan after a vote to table. And so I think it's worth our time to talk about possibly doing other measures. Is that something that we can even do at this point? Because I think we're hearing a lot of comments in the community that that's really important to them.
So in order to discuss anything, we can ask questions on a review. Is my understanding there would have to be a motion on the table that is seconded from that standpoint to open up any discussion with the board. Lisa, yep.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
Yep.
So if I want to make a motion that we increase our masking requirements at the high school to universal masking in all buildings, so I would like to make that motion. I would like to see us discuss that.
So there's a motion to require universal masking K through 12.
Correct.
Is there a second? So that, I don't know the proper terminology, so that motion does not carry? Or does, no, it dies on the floor. Sorry, my first one. So we would not be able to discuss it.
So if there had been no second of the motion to table, we could have discussed that, or we couldn't have discussed that?
Yep, so the Roberts rules is that you have to have a motion. That motion needs to be seconded. Then you can, there needs to be a second. Then you open it up for discussion or comments. And then we would have a vote, a full board before the motion would carry. Before that motion would be implemented. In this case, increasing masking requirements. So in that specific case, for it to be implemented, there would have to be a second. We could have discussion, we wouldn't have to. And then we would vote on it as a board, and a majority would carry that motion.
Okay. This is a frustrating result to me, and I think because a lot of people at home have been.
Right, but we can't have discussion about it. I mean, you can share it with board leadership, but.
So what you're telling me, just a point of clarification, what you're telling me is on Lisa's motion to table, there was no discussion possible. And on my motion, there was no discussion possible. So
The motion to table has to be voted on before anything can happen after that. That's just Robert's rules about motions to table, because that's a final motion to end that discussion. That's just the rule the board follows.
And my understanding is your motion would any motion has to be seconded, other than a motion to table that doesn't allow that for us to discuss a specific topic.
I find it stunning that we don't want to discuss the state of masking in light of the Omicron.
We'll move on to our next item is the update on the superintendent search process. We will get an update from the subcommittee. Lisa Wagner, I assume, is going to represent that.
Okay, we are moving along on our superintendent search process. A couple of things I wanted to note for the benefit of the public is that we have a full timeline of our process available on the website under the school board tab, and there's a special section for the superintendent search process. I want to particularly call out a couple of dates so that people are aware of them. Between January 14th and January 23rd, we will have a survey that will be conducted in multiple languages that will be posted and available, as well as links to come out. that will allow for various community constituencies to provide input to the search firm that we're using to develop a leadership profile, which is basically the profile for the job description and the leader that we're looking for. That survey will be open the 14th through the 23rd. In addition, there are going to be multiple focus groups that will be conducted that will allow various constituencies to provide input. Those will all be conducted virtually, so that we will allow for everyone to be able to participate comfortably and, given the situation with the pandemic. So we will, some of those will have specific groups that will be participating. For example, our teacher leaders, cabinet members, different levels of staff will each have their own opportunity in their own specific group. All the board members will be individually able to provide input. So they'll all be interviewed by the search firm. And then in addition, there will be some opportunities for community members that will be open. So just dates that will be announced and community members can attend. The meetings links will be posted. And then some that will be specific groups. For example, one group would be mayors of the communities that we serve. And so that group would only be input from the mayors. All of that input will be gathered by BWP over time, and then they will come back to us in early February and present a leadership profile. And then the board will have a chance to affirm that leadership profile, which they will then use to review the applications that they receive. The rest of the timeline is laid out on the website. We will have video that will be provided in the next few weeks that will be an overview conducted by BWP. It'll be, a PowerPoint kind of a podcasty type of a thing that will explain the process and all the different points in the process so that people will understand the process that is being used. And we also have frequently asked questions that will be developed as we get questions from the public about the process. So certainly people can email the board or through Let's Talk if they have questions specific to the process, and we can get answers posted online so that the entire community will have an opportunity to see them. The goal right now is to start conducting interviews in early March and to be able to select a finalist by the middle of March and hopefully approve the contract for the new superintendent at the April board meeting. So we're moving along in the process. Our vacancy announcement was posted well before the holidays. And so BWP is working on generating interest in the position nationwide. And, we're optimistic that we'll have a really great process and happy to answer any questions. So.
Any questions? I have one.
Sure.
Or maybe two. One is, and you probably said it, but we will update the website with all of this, or is it already?
The timeline is already on the website and
Okay.
has been out there.
Yep.
As we have, if we have any additional specificity around timing or dates, in terms of some of like for example, the open focus groups, once those are scheduled, which we're in the process of doing, then those dates will get posted so people can, that are interested in attending can do so. And again, they'll all be virtual. So there will be, accessibility. And if I should mention if for some reason someone wanted to participate and didn't have access to technology, that they could contact the district service center here and we would provide a means for them to get access. So if technology is a barrier for anybody, we would be able to provide an opportunity.
And then a second question, you talked about moving, we originally talked about possibly some in-person, some virtual, especially for some of that feedback loop. What kind of went into the decision, and I know what BWP had said before, but I think for the community, it's good to hear, to go to, they said that there's some advantages to the virtual options.
Yeah, we heard from actually several of the search firms that we interviewed for this opportunity, that they found that the engagement was actually significantly better using the virtual mode. Just like what we found with conferences, for example, with parent-teacher conferences, it was easier for people to get there and attend. They didn't have childcare issues. If someone isn't feeling well, they're still able to participate. And so, they were willing to come, completely willing to come. But the, subcommittee really felt like it was the best strategy to just allow it to be virtual. BWP just wrapped up a search with another district in the state of Illinois where they did the entirety of the search virtual. And the feedback from the references that we checked about that was very positive. That district felt very good about how the process went, and felt like it was a high level of community engagement. And certainly that community engagement piece is really important. And so just in order for it not to be there to be any barrier for community to engage, we felt that the virtual model was the best to just go forward with that one.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the subcommittee for keeping this going, and to our community, we'll keep the website up to date so that they can follow along exactly where we're at. So, our next item is a report on status of review and comment for Vantage Momentum Building. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is one we've been waiting for.
Yes.
As we moved along, we knew that we had to get the review and comment from the department as part of the statutory requirement for doing a building. And so we got that information back from them yesterday with the commissioner's signature. So I'm going to let Paul Bourgeois share the news. So he's been so integrally involved in all of this and was helpful in I'm sorry, I'm about ready to cough here. So he's been really involved with the architect firm and helping the state understand what we're doing and how we're paying for it and all of that. So, Mr. Bourgeois, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pearson. Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Pearson, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We have a really unique opportunity, something that has not been done in this district since 1966, to actually break ground on a completely new building. It's also something that probably is not very often done, if at all, in the rest of the state, in that we're funding this new building out of existing revenues rather than asking the taxpayers for a tax increase through a bond referendum. So we're handling it out of existing revenue streams. Back on November 4th, the school board approved submission of a review and comment document for the Vantage Momentum Building, 36,300 square feet, just under $14 million construction cost. 300 student capacity per half day, so 600 students during the day, in morning and afternoon shifts. And it'll require approximately $1.2 million of furniture and equipment from the capital projects fund over a couple of years. We're funding it from general fund revenues and operating capital revenues, and those words are actually very important because state statute says that those two funding sources can be used for acquisition or construction of facilities. So we submitted it on November 5th then, and it started a 60-day calendar review timeline for the Department of Ed. So they are required to turn it around within 60 days. A review and comment requires data in 24 distinct subcategories within 6 major categories. The geographic region and population to be served, a list of existing school facilities, a list of, these are terms that in the statute, a list of deficiencies of the facilities. In other words, in this situation, it's not that our facilities are deficient, but they're spread out, disparate, and we're putting them all together in one spot, and they will be improved over making use of existing facilities. And then describe the project to them in great detail. We have to specify the source of funding for the project, and then at the end of the process, or we have to have documentation that the district and contractors will be complying with all applicable building codes. So there's a certification that had to be signed and submitted with that. So we put together about a 60-page document, submitted that. So the next two slides is a summary of the handout that you have, which is the actual review and comment letter, which is a 3-page document. But their finding was the proposed project will be scheduled for completion in calendar year 2023 and appears to be in the best long-term interest of the school district. Then on the last page also, the statement on the review and comment, based on the department's analysis of the school district, required documentation and other pertinent information from sources of the Minnesota Department of Education, the Commissioner of Education provides a positive review and comment. And that's very important because it requires us to receive a positive review and comment so that we could issue bonds for the portion that's going to be funded by bonding. There's 3 conditions then to comply with the Minnesota statute, 123B.71, that is laid out in the letter from the Commissioner. We must publish the review and comment summary statement in the local paper of record, which would be the Sun-Sailor, 20 days before bonds can be sold. So we will be publishing it January 13th and through February 1st in the Sun-Sailor. We actually have already submitted that to the Sun-Sailor so that it will be in next week's paper. We must discuss the review and comment and the findings at a public meeting, and actually this meeting qualifies to meet that commitment. And then at the end of the process, just before we get our certificate of occupancy, after the building has been built and all the systems have been installed and become operational, they have to be tested. We must have certification to the Department of Ed and City Building Code official, basically it'd be the City of Minnetonka Building Code official, that all HVAC and ventilation systems comply with the American Society of Heating and Refrigeration Architects and Engineers Standard 52.1 prior to occupying the facility. So ATS&I will perform that task for the district at that time. So we are on the way. Next steps, they're all in process. We'll be working to sell the components, the $7 million COP bonds paid for, where the payments will be out of operating capital. That will pay for half the costs. Of course, the remaining $7 million in construction are coming from existing resources that we have in the general fund. We actually today submitted the project to the City of Minnetonka and City of Minnetonka for permits, and we will be submitting to the Riley Purgatory Bluff Creek Watershed District, excuse me, for their permit. Excuse me, I got just a little tickle in my throat. We will be meeting with Vantage and Momentum staff on the internal layout of the program areas. And then we're working on detailed design drawing. The goal is to send out to bid by March 1st, open bids by late March, and accept bids on April 7th, which would allow a May 1st groundbreaking. Of course, in Minnesota, they have this thing called road restrictions for hauling out and in and out dirt in terms of how heavy your trucks can be. And usually those are lifted until May 15th, so I would not be surprised to not see a lot of activity until May 15th on the site, although they might be setting up and bringing in a job trailer and all that kind of stuff. So there should be some activity in there in late April and May, and then they'll really get at it probably when the road restrictions are lifted. Again, mentioned the first all-new building constructed in Minnetonka ISD 276 in 56 years. The last time this happened was 1966 when we broke ground for Scenic Heights Elementary School. There will be no taxpayer impact, as I mentioned. It's funded from general fund revenue on hand and operating capital revenue for bond payments, which are existing revenue streams. Now, this was a drawing or a concept of that we submitted to the city for their initial conceptual review process, which we've actually gone through that with the Planning Commission and with the City Council, and we received comments on the proposed project, and they were actually very impressed with our conceptual plan. They said it was actually much more detailed than most developers submit in terms of the initial concept. We gave them this drawing, and they were, one of the things they asked us to, we've talked about trying to have this be a post-secondary option, or looking type of building. And this was our first cut with it. But we've actually been working with it a little more, and one of the things that I talked with ATS&R about is we have a lot of red brick already in the district, and a lot of orange brick already in the district. And we also happen to have, on cloudy days, they tend to be darker buildings, and I suggested we have 169 rain days and 169 cloudy days, so there's not a lot of sunny days, but can we do something lighter that wouldn't look so dark on a dark cloudy day? So we started looking at, I also sent them some pictures of several projects I worked on in the past that we actually won awards on, where we have 3 different colors of kind of lighter colored brick. And so we started working on some other options. So we're kind of looking at moving towards this type of sketch. And this is a sketch by Dave Maroney by hand with just some initial color concepts, starting to get towards the 3-color concept, but also starting to define the building a little bit more with a kind of a rotunda and a dome on top of that rotunda for the main entrance, which is on the east side. And this is a little bit more curtain wall glass, and then also use of a type of brick called Kasota stone, which is actually unique to Minnesota. St. Thomas uses a lot of that. It's kind of a tannish blonde brick, but you can get it in multiple colors. And so this would be, this is again the concept of the other main side of the building, which is towards Highway 101. So this is if you're looking down Highway 101. And so they've taken that and moved into some elevation drawings. So we're starting to zero in more on what this thing is going to look like. And so you can see a couple of different colors of brick, a lot of glass, very professional looking, a darker base. That's always kind of a cleaner look to a building, but not super dark. And so this would be the east side. And it looks a little bit odd because from this takes the whole elevation that it's going to have a couple of faces on that east side, because the building is not square, but on the elevation drawing it looks like it's just a big flat panel. So you only see 2 dimensions here, not 3. And then this would be, we're starting to zero in on the west side too, so same difference. You actually, what you could see from the actual due west, so you kind of got the northwest face showing, and that's where we're at. All the crosshatch down below is actually, that's like inside the dirt. That's just representative dirt on this drawing. So we're starting to move on that. We got a lot of drawings going on, and we'll have some more probably by to show you of where we're at by the next study session also. So that's really all. That's the review and comment in I guess the summary version of it. But bottom line is that was a key hurdle. So with the state approving this and the board approving and setting up the financing, really the building will be built. It's a matter of just ironing out the details through the city and working to get it designed and out the door. So that's the status of it. So it's kind of a good news piece, maybe a late Christmas present or something like that. Anyway, or holiday present. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Any questions from the board? Super exciting to get that review and comment back, and and start this cascading steps, and that really cement that timeline. It's super exciting. Thank you so much, and thank you to Dave and anyone else involved in getting that going. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Our next item is the adoption of Policy 307, Data Practices. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, you've reviewed this proposed change in the policy for data practices at a previous meeting, and so we believe it's ready for your adoption tonight, so I'd recommend that.
Great. Yeah, as you've said, we've reviewed this quite a bit, and in our last study session, we thought it would be ready to approve. So can I have a motion to adopt the revisions to Policy 307 as proposed?
So moved.
Lisa, is there a second?
Second.
John? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oop.
Sorry.
Nope. Question, Lisa? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that we noted for people watching that in addition to the revisions in the policy, that the administration is working on a publicly posted webpage that spells out the process for requesting data, and also the benefit of collaborating with the district staff to maximize the utility of the information for the requester and manageability in terms of the scope of the request. So there's going to be a lot that's going to accompany this, that's going to make it sort of come to life. And I know Dr. Cyrus covered a lot of that for us in the study session, but wanted to just make sure to call that out, because I think it's, you know, a big part of this is to allow for the public to understand how they can get this data if they are interested in obtaining data. And so the whole webpage will be really, I think, very beneficial to members of the community.
Thank you for catching that, Lisa. I appreciate it. Any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is the acceptance of sale of used iPads. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mike Dronin and Paul Bourgeois are available to answer specific questions, but we've gotten into a cycle of leasing our iPads, and so they're turned over fairly regularly, and Mike can answer a little more detail about that. But then we sell the used iPads that are in great demand. I mean, vendors know what they're getting from Minnetonka, and so I want them to talk about the value that we're going to get out of these used iPads and how that all fits into the cycle. So, Mr. Dronin, would you go over that detail?
Thank you, Dr. Peterson, Madam Chair, members of the board. We'd like to bring before you, Mr. Bourgeois and I, the recommendation that we go with our highest respondent here, Limitless USA, their current offer of $1 million, $41,280.06 for our lot of iPads that we made available for about a month publicly online. You can see there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different companies submitted qualifying responses to this. So happy to answer any questions.
Patrick?
In conjunction with putting this up for bid, was there any estimate of value that we had sort of made independently of what sort of value we might obtain? And if so, was this within line or higher or lower?
Yeah, this is right in line with what we thought the market would offer. Now, as you look at those bids in front of you, these are all folks that work professionally in this space, and you can see that there's a little bit of disparity there, almost from $600,000 up to a full $1 million. But you'll also see that the top 2 are very close. In fact, the top 3, maybe the top 4 are very close, and so very competitive bids there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Can I have a motion to accept the high bid of Limitless USA in the amount of $1,041,280.06 for our surplus iPads, charging bricks, and cables?
So moved.
Mark, second?
Second.
John? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Lisa, second?
Second.
Mark? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board reports. Does any members of the board have a report?
No.
I don't think we've had any meetings since then. Dr. Peterson, Superintendent's report.
Yeah, a couple of things. We've had some large events where we would bring a lot of students together and to maybe gyms or cafeterias or whatever, and even having adults attend and watch the performances. So we're working with those groups to maybe delay them, find other ways to do it, et cetera. So we're trying to not bring lots of people together and expose the students who would be involved. We've gone back to doing some of our administrative meetings. In fact, the PTA, PTO leaders next week will be virtual. So we're trying to avoid situations where we could have a lot of people affected by one or two cases in the audience. Also, this is on a bigger picture. I think tomorrow the Supreme Court's going to hear the presentation from both parties on the president's vaccine requirements. And so that could affect us if the Supreme Court decides to support the mandate that the president's had. We would have to get in high gear to be ready to require vaccinations and/or testing and so forth. So I will be sending you some more details on that tomorrow. And, we probably need to be ready at the study session to consider that if the Supreme Court's responded by then. I think they see the urgency for a lot of people in the country, so it's likely they will have a decision as soon as possible. So I want to bring you up to date on those things.
Just a question, if that were to happen, would we change that to a special meeting? If we would need to? 'Cause
You'd probably need a special meeting.
We would
to
need
act
to,
on
we would
that,
probably need
yeah.
to act on something.
You
Okay.
probably have to adopt a policy.
Yep, okay. Great. Any announcements, or, sorry, any questions for Dr. Peterson? Any announcements? I have one. I just want to, again, welcome Patrick and Megan to the board, and getting through your first board meeting. So, just glad that you're here. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
John, I would say Lisa, John. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
We are adjourned. Motion passes 4 yeas to 1 nay.